That's a great way to start the stream. Big old burp. Big old burp. How you guys doing? Look at this majestic beard. You guys are right, man. This beard is fucking majestic as shit. I do need to go get it trimmed. I feel like it's getting a little. I'd like to smooth this out a little bit. I think it's getting a little too out and about. You know what I mean? A little too out and about. But it's impossible for me to say that it's not like absolutely majestic. That guy, good to see you. Matthew, good to see you. Rusty, strong comment. Posting third, second. Well done. Well done, sir. I know, we've all been there. We've all been there. Unlikely Mention says, oh, this guy is on again. Oh, good to see you, Unlikely Mention. Forced from Twitch. Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. The real party is on YouTube, just so you know, my man. Glad to see you. Not sure if it's me, but you're breaking up. Might just be you. Anybody else confirm? I cannot confirm or deny. If other people are experiencing breaking up, I'm doing well today. I'll tell you what. I'm feeling, my little pug is right here. He's looking at me like, John, who are you even talking to? Just had a relaxing, chill day. I did leg day not that long ago, and it still is taking me several days to recover from leg day, which means that I've got to keep doing leg day. But it means that it's slowing me down. Like, if it was just like arms and shoulders and back and chest, if that was all I was doing, then I think I could do it every single day and just be like, but I'm getting leg day into the mix, and I have to really, really focus on it. It's really, really difficult. Although the doing of this last leg day was actually easy. It was actually not hard. It was just doing it, right? But then the recovery, because I'm 41, and it's taking me forever to get that back in. And when I'm in that recovery period, I really, really don't want to do other things. And so it's but I can feel it. I feel like it's like, and then eventually it'll be like when I'll get into the pattern of it. So it's about just doing it. It's just about doing it. That's all it is. How much cardio do you do before workout? I mean, I walk to the gym. I don't do like an hour on the treadmill or something, but like, because I'm like walking to the gym and because I walk home from the gym, I figure that's my cardio. I don't do cardio at the gym. The only time I'll get on a treadmill or get on a machine to run is to run backwards, because that works a slightly different muscle group. It increases your cardio, but it lets you do it gets you, yeah. I mean, if you want to do it, that's fine. Like, knock yourself out, but I don't. Unlikely mentions, I can't watch you on YouTube. That's going to cross my online identities. I can't risk that for my job. Fair enough, dude. You got to do what you got to do. I would have guessed 401 from the length of the beard. Oh, no. It'll go nice and white. That's what it'll do when I get up to that age. Elliptical for the win, yeah, exactly. So, but today was a nice relaxing day, really chilled out. I've been drawing cards from the tarot deck every single day, and it's been very positive. Lots of positivity has been coming out of that deck, which is really, really nice. And so I don't know, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about the stream. I'm feeling good about my life in general. I feel good. I feel stable. I'm about to go home to Manitoba soon to visit family, and that's going to be really, really nice, right? That's going to be really, really nice. You are a Western esoterist. Every mystical idea you have mentioned fits that bill. Esoterist. Okay. I can't say that I've ever encountered that. So, I don't know. These are just the ideas that come out of my brain, or out of my consciousness, out of my body. The replacement for Lynch. Oh, yeah. God bless you, David Lynch. He used to do the number draw. Well, I don't think I'm going to do the card draw on stream ever. I think it's for me, right? I think that's just for me. And I mean, I don't know if you guys want me to. Sure, like I can start to do that if you like, but I'm not keen. I'm not drawn to doing that. So, Bread Bunny, good to see you. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling better. So connected, at peace. My energy work exploration has also led to hugely affirmative results. That's good. It is good. Like I feel like it's like anything else, which is like going to the gym, for example, right? Being at the gym and doing the work itself is not the best. It's not the greatest. I'm not like celebrating like, sweet, I get to go to the gym. But afterwards, and the after effects, the benefits of doing it are so obvious and so beneficial to your life that I feel that way with like spiritual work too. Like the doing of it is like, I'm not like yeehaw shooting rockets in the sky or anything, but the obvious benefits, the and in lots of ways, it's just like clearing out the clutter of your own internal consciousness, right? Just clearing it out, right? Unlikely mention. Yeah, you really like the mysticism conversation that I bring to the table. I think unlikely. So you say I do tarot. I actually have the history of it. I was more into its application for astral projection than divination, though. I use a Shing for divination because it's magic's based on the random number generation vibes with my it persona. Is that IT persona? Yeah, the I more or less just look at tarot stuff as like what you are fundamentally doing is introducing a random element into your consciousness, and you're allowing a random element to have meaning or to have a question or to have some kind of influence in your consciousness, right? That's all it is. Like I don't really buy too much. It's fun to think about it in an imaginative way, as if it has its own personality and is as if it is connected to some kind of personal thing, and that there's an energy flowing through the deck that then the deck sends at you, right? But fundamentally, just from a secularist perspective, it still is useful in the way that like a Rorschach test is useful, right? That you look at it, whatever is drawn from this random pile of assorted meaning cards is going to have you're dropping something into your consciousness and reflecting yourself on it, right? And it's useful to be confronted with that kind of a thing, no matter what, right? And I do think that some people go deep down that rabbit hole. I definitely think that happens, and they allow the deck and they allow tarot to have more influence on their life than I would. But that's, I don't know. Is that wrong? Is that bad? I don't know. It's just not what I would do for myself. And at the end of the day, I just think it's fun. That's all. I just think it's fun. Oh, Misty from Cyberpunk. Yeah, right. Can you do leg day on stream then? Never. I'm never going to do any of that on stream. I'm not going to become like one of these like workout guys. I'm not going to be like, yeah, the time to do leg day. Yeah, here's me doing a bunch of squats. You can do it too. No, that's never going to happen. It's not the nature of this stream. There's lots of people doing that, and they do it better than I do. Bread Bunny says, yeah, even just meditating through the chakras helps me confront my emotionally toxic mind frames and clear out the garbage. Yeah, everything beyond that just keeps getting cooler. That's great. That's great to hear, right? Because, like, the thing that I find interesting about the spiritual work, and no matter how you approach is that what it means that when things get erratic outside of you, and when things get destabilized outside of you, you can stay calm on the inside. And so you can just sort of go through it in a calm fashion. And people will eventually begin commenting on it, right? Like that's when you know it's really, really working. That when you put yourself into, or when you find yourself rather, in positions of high stress or in positions of high energy, people will say to you, like, you're just so, I don't know how you're so calm, right? I noticed it pretty early in my life because I did a lot of theater through my 20s and early 30s. I did a lot of theater. And you get into a position, you're standing waiting for your cue, right? And there's somebody around you, there's somebody beside you, right? And you're waiting for your time to go on and do your part. and you're just standing there, waiting for your cue. Usually there's another person, right? And going on stage and being in front of people, they've done tests and they've done like adrenaline stuff on this, and they have found that people who go on stage and perform in other people experience the same kind of adrenaline levels that people who get into car accidents experience. Right? That's why I think like performance, and especially acting performances, performers, you get addicted to it. Right? You become something of an adrenaline junkie. There's something exhilarating about going in front of people and performing and experiencing that exchange, and especially when it goes well. When it goes really nicely, it's like, wow, that's the greatest, right? I'd love to go perform some of my music again soon for a live audience, because that's a really... And like, the larger the audience and the more receptive the audience, obviously, the bigger that experience is going to be. So, the anticipation and the build up to it is nerve wracking, right? There's a lot of like, oh my God, to it, right? And I just found that I would be standing with people about to go do it, and people would eventually start saying to me like, man, how are you so calm right before this? Like, this is nerve wracking. Like, there's like, oh my God, like, some performers literally, like Bo Burnham talked about it, Johnny Cash talked about it, where he's like, yeah, I would throw up before every single show, just like the anxiety and the nerve wracking kind of thing. But every time I do it, it's just like, okay, like, there's the energy's there, but it just kind of goes through, and it doesn't have that same kind of like, and then when I go out, I understand that my job is to take that energy and send it back to the audience, right? And so, and you'll start to see that, you'll start to experience that, right? It's people will start to notice it, and it'll manifest in your life, and it'll manifest in your job. One of the, honestly, like, in the capitalist job that I do, like, I'm not like a god or anything. I'm not like I don't put that much energy into the capitalist job that I do, because you guys know me, like, my position is that we should abandon these capitalist jobs, and we should stop doing them. That we should literally go lay in fields and stuff like that, right? So it's not like I'm like, what can I do for you today, sir? How can I help you? Oh, yes, capitalist, sir. Like, it's not how I am. It's not who I am. But I bring like a stability, right? I'm always there early. I always do my job very competently, right? If somebody is talking to me, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know exactly what to do, right? If everything were to hit the fan and shit was to go crazy, everybody knows that I would run the place, right? And I wouldn't be stressed about it. It wouldn't be difficult for me, right? And I know that that's true. So what do I bring? I bring stability and calmness, right? And how do I have that stability and calmness? Because of the internal spiritual work that I've done, right? That it's just like, I'm not going to be, it's not going to be a problem, right? And like, sometimes I do think like, man, why I could run an establishment like this. Like, I've run like pretty large scale theatrical performances. I've been a stage manager before, right? Like, not even before, a lot, right? I've held keys for fairly large productions. I've like helped move fairly large productions. I've been the assistant manager of a $2 million store, right? Like, I mean, I sort of think every so often I get to thinking to myself, man, like, why don't I just like start applying for places and see if I can, and then I realize, like, oh yeah, because the system of capital is killing everybody. Right. Right. So I'm going to put in the least amount of energy I possibly can into the system of capital. Absolutely 0%. Like, if I could make it 0%, I absolutely would. So, yeah, for politics. Oh yeah, we should probably talk about politics, right? Like, oh yeah, I guess this is a political podcast, right? A political show. Yahoo News, Netanyahu is against the two-state solution. Yeah, big fucking surprise there. Groundbreaking news reports IDF is checking dead bodies to see if they are hostages. I mean, yeah. Like, the IDF is just like total scumbags. My assumption is that they're like desecrating bodies and shit like that, and that's always been my assumption. I saw an article today that they're digging up graves and things like this. And I'm like, and people are like, why are they doing that? It's like, to desecrate them, right? Because like part of what they're doing is a religious thing, right? Like that the Zionists are fundamentalists and they believe that Islam itself is corrupt, and that so they're digging up Muslims in order to desecrate their bodies and desecrate their graves, right? As a final insult. Like that's like the IDF has no soul. Like these people are fucking demons. Unlikely says, I maintain my wage slave job by knowing the workflow and how metrics are tracked. I don't actually work anymore. Yeah. Yep. That sounds like what a perfect articulation of rebellion, right? Is to like show up and like do what you need to do in order to be a part of it and to be understood. But the true way to survive through the apocalypse with your credibility intact is to just keep your head down, don't get noticed, right? And just like when the metrics sweep through and when the algorithm sweeps through, just make sure it doesn't notice you. That's it. It's just don't be noticed. That's the real way, because at the end of the day, like they're gonna use AI on everything, right? They're gonna AIify everything. That's the big like story that keeps coming through, and that's the story that they keep trying to hit us with, and that's the story that they keep sweeping through, that like AI is going to take over everything and AI is going to destroy everything and AI. That's what they keep saying to us. It's all AI and everything's going to be AIified. It's like, okay, well, everything's going to be AIified, right? So all you got to do is figure out what the AI is looking for, figure out what the algorithm is doing, and just don't get noticed. Right? Just be in that percentage of people. Don't be so bad that the AI notices it and then picks you out, and don't be so good so the AI notices and then gives you more work, right? You want to be right in the middle, just completely unnoticed, just collect your paycheck and do as little as possible. That's the real job of it, right? Yeah, biggest Hado exercise in years starting next week. Yeah. No, NATO is ramping up, of course. Like the Fourth Reich needs to rise, right? Like it's how it's going to be. Unlikely writes, because they overwork us, tickets don't get closed, so I just update and close them. Now I'm number one on team metrics. Your job is literally just to like do basic maintenance, right? Like your job is just to kind of go through and like just be like, this should be closed and this should be closed and this should be closed. Like we've done this. This should be nobody's bothered. So it's like it's in like a basic kind of function sort of way. It's like you're doing like essential janitorial work, right? Like you're just like looking at the garbage bin and being like, garbage bin's empty. Oh, let's not get into the prophecy stuff. Here's my prophecy. We can check it after, but Israel is waking Babylon for a third exile. Yeah, I mean, like, look, what Israel is doing. Let's talk about it in terms of like the big, long, grand history of Israel, right? Israel is doing the thing that it has done in the past, right? It's done it before. It'll do it. It's doing it again, right? Like, read you just got to read the I did have an AI thing. I should have definitely brought that up. Oh well. Just read the Old Testament. Read the prophets, right? What's called the prophets, right? Micah and Malachi and all these guys, right? Read the letters and read the things that they said, right? Just do a Google search for the for Old Testament phrases, woe be to Israel, right? Like, I've known this the entire time. Like, Israel is marching itself into its own self-destruction, right? It's marching itself into its own self-destruction. It's marching itself into its own grave. And this is nothing new for Israel. Like, if you want to take the big, long scope of it, the big, long, gigantic scope of it, it's, yeah. Unlikely writes, I founded a church, ran Bible study, did lessons on the Old Testament in its original Hebrew, then got excommunicated because I called my church pastors out on heresy. Yeah, most churches these days are heretical, right? Especially in the West. Like, Nobody's actually reading the Bible and listening to anything that's actually written, right? Nobody actually gives a shit about Jesus Christ. Like all of these, nobody cares about Jesus Christ. Like if Jesus Christ showed up in front of today's modern churches, he would be crucified, right? Like if he said the things that he said to the people who are running today's churches, he would be crucified, right? Because nobody gives a fuck about Christ. Nobody gives a shit about Jesus. Nobody, and certainly nobody cares about the stories of the Old Testament, right? Like people like Ben Shapiro are like the hackiest frauds ever. They love Moses, but they despise what he says, right? Uh, 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 all of these people are frauds, right? And they're frauds. There's two types of frauds that exist in today's discourse. You have the Christian fundamentalists who are basically fascists, right? The Christo-fascists. Chris Hedges called them out, and I agree completely. Like these people view the Bible as a literal document to be taken as literal as possible, except the words that are actually said, right? So Christ is a magician wizard who does magic spells, and you have to believe that. But any of the times where he actually said, love your neighbor as yourself, that can be completely ignored. You don't need to pay any attention to that. So you don't need to actually pay attention to the Sermon on the Mount. You don't need to actually pay any attention to the things that these leaders actually said, unless you cherry pick some kind of thing that Paul wrote in like Corinthians or something, where he was like, gay is bad. And so it's like, oh, okay, cool. That means that we can execute gay people. Yeah, that means that we can like round gay people up, right? Because Paul wrote 3 words in a book once. That's right. That's right. That's the thing we can do, right? Forget about the fact that the great commandment is love your neighbor as yourself, and it doesn't say unless he's gay. Like tough shit. Like too bad. Right? So you have these frauds, these total huckster level fraudulent fundamentalists who have taken over the discourse. And then on the other side of the coin, you have just the weak, pathetic, loser, liberal-minded, lefty Christian types who essentially just treat it like it's a club where they all get together and they're all just like, the feelings of the feels are what's the feelings of the feelings, right? They're never actually standing up to any of this. They don't actually stand for anything. They for them, it's just about like, they might as well just be sitting in a room, just being like, I love my Jesus, right? It's just isolation. It's just Christ isn't a living thing for them, and they certainly don't feel like they need to defend it. And so they're just weak, limp, lame ducks who don't give a fuck at all. Like, if I had somebody in my life who said that they loved me and said that they cared about me, but acted the way that these guys do in regards to Christ, I would just be like, you're useless. Like you're no friend of mine, right? You're not actually standing up for me. You're not actually fighting for me. You're not actually defending me. You're a weak ass loser, right? You're a weak ass loser, right? Yeah, you're not the only person who's suddenly. I worry that it's my internet. Unlikely. We got a guy on Twitch saying that Twitch is kind of futzing, and you guys are kind of saying that YouTube is futzing. I'm worried that it's my internet. I might have to contact my internet person. Not the first time I've had internet problems. The CIA is finally catching up with me, you guys. Right? Why is there even a New Testament? Isn't that what we call revisionism? Yeah, I mean, that's essentially, it was a group of Jews living in the Roman Empire who were saying, who essentially said that Judaism had sort of calcified, right? Like who were Christ's largest enemies? The Sadducees and the Pharisees. It's who he was fighting against constantly, right? And it was obviously these Jewish sects. And so there was a branch of Judaism that basically said, we need to if we are to actually survive in this empire, and if we are actually to create a new mode of thinking and a new mode of existing, um, we can't do it by falling into this fundamentalism. Like the Sadducees and the Pharisees were the Pharisees were the fundamentalists of their day, and so Christ emerges as a figure during this time, and a lot to me, the story of Christ and the purpose of the story of Christ was always to kind of amalgamate a lot of different stories under one umbrella, right? In order to get because of what was going on in the Roman Empire. Like the Roman Empire it was a slave empire where they were going into like Egypt, Northern Europe, Eastern, what today is called Eastern Europe, the Middle East, rounding up barbarians, right? Just people of all different religions and groups and ethnicities, and then bringing them all to Rome, right? So you just have like a whole bunch of cultural and ethnic groups that are living in a single city, that have nothing to do with one another, that don't know each other, that don't know each other's languages, that know nothing about what's going on across the Mediterranean Sea, certainly. And I think that Christianity really arose out of this moment because the figure of Christ was an amalgamation of a lot of different ethnic views and a lot of different ethnic perspectives under a single figure. So it gave something for the Egyptians and the Gauls and the Persians to like grab onto, and they could grab onto it collectively. It was a unifying figure that they could all kind of be like, okay, like we can all get underneath this banner, which was really, really important, given what was going on in the Roman Empire at the time. Because the Roman Empire was essentially, it would say that it was a secular religion, but the religion was the state, and the emperor was seen as a demigod, right? So you worshiped the state, essentially, and you were expected to worship the emperor, and you were expected to worship the state. And so Christ arises as a figure that is counter to that, and is essentially the god of the working class, right? And the working people. That's why Christianity persisted, and that's why Christianity ultimately won, because the Roman Empire started to wane and fail, as empires do, and its religion went with it. And then what remained was the religions and the ideas that were within the working people, and that included Christianity. There was a bunch of them, but Christianity was the one that sort of prevailed and then took over and then became like state sanctioned, and then got corrupted and then went down its own path, and now here we are today. Yeah, loud and clear on my end. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I agree with you about the Jesus thing. A friend of mine is without food or heat in cold temperatures because his priest dad, I assume that is, doesn't like that he's gay. Yeah, like this sort of embarrassing like position. It only makes sense in like a little kid kind of way, right? You know, in like when you're a little kid, especially a little boy, because I think little boys are more aggressive in this regard, because I think that little boys are dealing with testosterone and like that kind of thing, with more, and testosterone makes especially like little boys more aggressive, right? But like when you're a little boy, you think girls are gross, right? Like as you grow up, you change your perspective on that for obvious and various reasons, right? Uh, uh, and I just think that it's that same kind of mentality that, like, ooh, icky, right? And that's it. You can articulate it a lot more, like, refinedly if you like people like Peterson and Shapiro do. But, like, it basically boils down to, ooh, gay people are icky. Trans people are icky. So it's just like little boy thinking, right? That's all. And they haven't actually put thought into it. They haven't actually, like, it's just like this gut reaction that they're having in the same way that like a little boy goes, girls are icky and gross. They've got cooties, right? It's the same level of thinking. And it is that reductive, and it doesn't actually take that much effort to break through it, right? To me, you just need to, especially, it's weird that like religious people get weird about it, because it's like, well, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, you think that the creator, the God that you believe in, has a limited imagination? You think that the limit of God's imagination is your imagination? Why? That's really weird, right? That's really strange. Don't you think it would be the other way around? Don't you think that when this new thing kind of came up, you would be like, huh, wow, I guess my creator has a broader imagination than I do, and that the limit of what is possible in reality is not limited to my imagination. And that if I am to deny that person's existence because of my feeling of ickiness towards it, then I'm not really being a grown-up, and I'm just kind of being a little kid. That's exactly what's happening, right? That's exactly what happened. This people need to grow up. They just need to fucking grow up and be a fucking adult, right? Like I understand if you're like, I don't know, I'll go as late as 25. I think that if you're 25 and you're still like, gay people are icky, right? Like, if you still have that kind of like impulse and you still have that kind of feeling, right? I'm gonna be like, okay, right? You gotta grow up, bro. But if you're 30, if you're 40, certainly if you're 50, 60, 70, I'm like, fuck you, man. Like, grow up. You're just a little boy still. Like, you're still a little boy walking around thinking like a little boy, pretending as though we should respect you when you refuse to grow up, right? Grow up. Like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, all these guys, Tim Pool, like all these guys, they just need to grow up. They're just little kids, right? Like that, and it's weird that they're popular. Just shows you how immature and little kid our culture and our society is. We just don't want to grow up, and it's for what? Ew, icky. That's it. It's just icky. Grow up, fucking little kid. Resist. Good to see you, my man. The Imperium of Man. Sounds like we got some Warhammer 40k shit going on. Oh, I only know English. I've never really pursued languages. It's not my bag. I kind of wish I had of, but when I was a kid, they were like jamming French in my face. And the second they gave me the option to no longer take French, I was just like, bye. Looking back on that, I do think that Turner trying to do a I know you are, but what am I? It's not the dunk you think it is, my man. Are capitalists and entrepreneurs icky? No, I wouldn't say that they're icky. I'd say that they're victims of a class system that we should eliminate, right? That creates a natural antagonism in the society that we should get rid of. Looking back on my education, it was pretty clear that they were educating us to hate French. And so that's really what, and I think that way of reading too, that they're educating kids to hate reading and they're educating kids to hate learning, right? Like that seems to be the point, one of the major points of the education system. They really try to distill out of you the desire to learn and the desire to read, right? This is something that Elon Musk has put outside. That doesn't get much more dystopian than this. Loki. Well, we got a couple of new people in the chat. That's good to see. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, hit the bells, hit the whistles, do the stuff. If you want to donate to my Patreon, it's in the description. More importantly than any of that, though, please tell people I exist. That's the more important part of any of it, right? One day I'll never have to ask for money again. I'm sure it's going to happen, but today is not that day. Loki writes, you can cheat with the Bible. There are interlinear copies that give you a text translation of each word. Yeah, I mean, I feel like even that, like, our culture is very much stuck in a fundamentalist interpretation of these texts, right? That if you read the Bible, it's that you have to believe every single word, and God is like Jesus is a wizard, magic is real, right? You can't actually take the position that, like, okay, here's a group of people during a specific group of time that were struggling with larger concepts that are larger than them, attempting to make an articulation of what is going on in reality and what's going on around them. And we should learn of, like, the thing that they're discussing is so broad and vast in scale and scope that it is impossible that they would articulate it accurately, right? But that doesn't mean that we should denigrate the attempt, right? And it doesn't mean that there's nothing to learn there, right? And it doesn't mean that we can't enjoy the text for what it is and enjoy the stories that are presented and enjoy what it is. That we only get in trouble with religion when we start to interpret it as if magic is real. And I feel like there's a real streak, and that streak still exists. I really started to notice it with the new atheists, but it still exists and persists, which is that people who reject that mode of thinking, or fundamentalism, or the fundamentalists, still interpret the text from a fundamentalist perspective. And they still look at the Bible, and they still look at the Quran, and they still look at the Vedas as if these are fundamentalist documents, right? And that mindset is itself corrosive. That mindset is itself a major negative force, and that we would be better off simply having these texts, reading them, and understanding them for what they are, which is a group of people struggling with very vast concepts, and that the point of the text is not to marry the text, but to use the text as a way to perceive through the conversation that they're attempting to have. It's to learn something about the reality, and to see the reality in different ways, not to put the book in front of your face so that it blinds you from reality, which is what we do. Right? And so, yeah. So my encouragement to the atheists in the conversation is to give these books a crack, with the understanding that nobody is saying there are obviously people who are saying magic is real, but read them as if it is not the case that magic is real, and that there's something else to glean and to know and to learn. Loki writes, I'm only here because your Twitch is broken. Oh, I see. Very good. Is my Twitch broken? I'm just going to try refreshing this. I worry that, have they finally done it? Have they finally killed me? TikTok killed me. TikTok won't let me back on. So, I know it's coming eventually. Eventually all of these socials will just kill me and kill everybody like me. And that's just going to happen. Bread Bunny, the one that they let through. I give up. I've changed my message 10 times. The censorship is bull. I wonder if this Turner McKay guy is gone. He made the one comment and probably just left. That happens so often. It's amazing how often that happens, where a person comes in, says something snide, and then just leaves. Like, persuasive. Well done. Ah, wonderful. I'm glad that you're here, Turner McKay. How wonderful. It's always nice to have new people in the room. Let's see. Wait, what did TikTok do? TikTok banned me. Right? They just literally just made it, and they didn't send me a message or something. They literally just made it so I can't log in anymore. Right? They just straight up are just like, yep, oh, your password's not working anymore. And I tried to do all the regular stuff, change it, all the stuff. I even was talking to someone at TikTok, and then they just ghosted me, right? So, like, it's really, really obvious what they're doing. I mean, it's a NATO organization, right? So, are we surprised? And I mean, I know plenty of people like that get banned off TikTok, right? There are a couple of people who I'm like kind of surprised they haven't already been banned on TikTok, but I think it's because the line in the sand that they're drawing is the same line. It's why Noam Chomsky has always been permitted in the conversation, right? Because ultimately Noam Chomsky's goal is to funnel people into the Democratic Party, Like that's his goal, is to take the energy of take the revolutionary energy of the populace and funnel it into a dead pursuit. And that's the reason why he's been permitted to persist in the conversation. Well, Turner, feel free to participate, because I feel like a lot of the time I feel like people's perceptions of what's going on, especially in regards to communism, are essentially based on like CIA propaganda, right? Just like news articles that you see from like the National Post or like the New Yorker, right? And when you actually begin to essentially just say like, "Hey, what's your source for that?" They don't have anything. You just kind of find out that they're just saying it, you know? And if that's the case, then we're not obliged to go along with it, right? Like in the same way that like if somebody says Jesus Christ was doing magic, you can be like, "What's your evidence for that?" And if they can't provide evidence for that, you can just be like, "Oh, okay, then I'm not obliged to believe it," right? And I feel like that happens a lot, right? Maybe they knew at that time you were skipping leg day. Try again. No, I've tried several times. I've tried several times. I've tried to create a new account. I've tried to do all kinds of stuff, right? At one point, I had a new phone number, and I tried to use the new phone number, and it doesn't work, right? No, I've been banned. Like, and it's I'm not the only person that it's happened to, right? There are lots of people, lots of leftists that get their account banned on TikTok. There was one guy, the most egregious I ever saw, was there was this guy, his whole shtick was just that he was a bodybuilder, and he would just flex and be like, and have like music, and he would be like, he'd be flexing and then music, and it would be like, "Communism good." And that was it. That was his whole channel. Just flex, communism good, flex. That's it. And he was just making very simple, like not calling for anything really, and he got taken out. So it's just like, no, they're very very clearly like, and it's not surprising. TikTok is run by former NATO operatives, and NATO exists in order to destroy the Soviet Union and by extension communism. Like, I mean, they're not going to allow a communist movement to persist on TikTok. And there are a couple of people who are on TikTok right now who are who I would argue are like TikTok communists, but it seems to me like they're only allowed to persist because all they ever really do is stand up and be like, "But this is what the Constitution says. Like, this is what this documents it." They're essentially there to just be like, You're calling bullshit. You're calling bullshit. So they're not really organizing anything, and fundamentally their solutions will amount essentially to just vote blue no matter who. And as long as you're willing to stand up and say vote blue no matter who, NATO will be like, "Oh, okay." So they're going to take all of the revolutionary energy and they're going to take all that and they're going to funnel it into the dead electoral system. "Oh, okay. Then that's fine." And in fact, that might be very persuasive and useful for us. That's why Noam Chomsky exists, right? Every time I make a Reddit or Imgur account, it's immediately shadow banned. I never got a reason why. Yeah, probably like like the algorithm's getting good. Like the algorithm's getting real good, you guys. Like it understands what's going on. One of the things that I'm kind of like sort of hopeful for, and I do try to maintain a little bit of positivity within the conversation, is that some of these, like, I think YouTube is something like this, where they're like, well, we can't just outright ban people. Like, we can't just straight up say this entire mode of thinking is going to be removed from the conversation, because that's going to create a lot of issues. Not only are we going to lose a lot of support from just the capitalist perspective, but just also, like, it's going to be bad for the conversation. Like, why is it good speech beats bad speech unless you're communist, right? And like, it's and so I sort of hope that there is this element of like, okay, we got to let people hash this stuff out and talk about it. But the truth is that at the end of the day, the capitalists will realize that if we actually do that, everybody will realize that, capitalism is a fraud. We should get rid of the system of capital. oh no, we gotta get rid of these communists. Communism is the same as Nazism. Ha ha ha. Right? That junk. Can't argue that capitalism is perfect by any means, but I just don't understand how communism could realistically be implemented in the 21st century. Well, I mean, that probably is because you don't actually take the history of China seriously, right? Or the history of Southeast Asia seriously, right? That right now, the strongest communist project that's going on, and remember, it's a project, right? You're not just going to be like, bing, communism now, bing, it happened, communism, right? That's not how it works. But the strongest project that's going on right now is the People's Republic of China, right? That the capitalist propaganda has convinced you that China is capitalist, right? And they've done that because China is being outrageously successful right now. But China has been, since Mao, the People's Republic of China literally just celebrated 150 had their 150th or 150 millennial. They had a big fucking party because they celebrated their 150th year of rule, right? And the trajectory from Mao to Deng to Xi Jinping has been, I don't want to use the word clean, but like it's been a passing of the baton. There's been a passing of the baton, and there's been an understanding that what we are doing is building the productive force of China on behalf of the people of China, right? That this sort of odd idea that comes out of the West. June's right, 100th. You're correct. Thank you, June. This idea that comes out of the West that says that what's happening in China is capitalism is Western cope. It's Western cope. And it's not something that I take seriously because all you got to do is listen. All you got to do is read what Deng and Xi Jinping write. And all you got to do is look at the National People's Congress. And all you got to do is listen to these guys, right? And you see pretty quickly that these guys at no point are talking about a capitalist restoration. At no point are they at all interested in their country becoming a capitalist country. At no point are they sitting there discussing how good capitalism is, and that when they discuss capital coming into their country, they discuss it as a tool or something that they have to work with in order to keep the capitalists at bay. Because the alternative of... Right. So Turner says, tough to look at China in isolation, though, as they are currently leveraging capitalism via their massive investments, participation in manufacturing industry for the global market. Correct. Right? Correct. And that happens for a reason, though. Right? Like, capitalists like to pretend like this happens because capitalism is the best system in the world. Right? Capitalism is obviously the best system. Obviously. Look, China is becoming capitalist. It's obviously the best. They couldn't stop it. Naturally came through. It's just normally capitalism, and they would be better off with all the capitalism because capitalism's the best. This line of thinking likes to just completely avoid and ignore the gigantic and major war that happened on China's border, right? So as long as you eliminate from your thinking that there was a massive, full-scale anti-communist war that happened on China's border, then you can hold this kind of position that says capitalism is a natural force and all of these things just happen through the force of the natural free market, right? Like, we here at the Canadian Commie remember the Vietnam War. We remember the war on Cambodia and Laos. We remember the Korean War, right? We haven't eliminated that from our thinking, right? These wars occurred within living memory. There are many movies that exist about the Vietnam War. There are many there's a caricature. There's an archetypal character that exists within the zeitgeist and the consciousness of the American mind, of the Vietnam War vet, right? You're in over your head, Donnie, right? Like this PTSD embroiled person. So what you actually have, right, is a country, America, going to Southeast Asia and launching an enormous bombing campaign on Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Korea, absolutely decimating these countries. Literally no standing structures. 20 to 30% of the population is murdered by America. You have them voting on it in Parliament. You have it discussed in the media. Literally, the reason, the casus belli, the motivation for them doing this is to, quote, staunch the spread of communism, right? That their concern is that if China is left alone, then they will expand communism into here, and communism will expand and expand and expand, and that's a threat to the system of finance capital. So for a decade and more, they launch these bombing campaigns and absolutely murder people throughout Southeast Asia. So how does China respond? Right? At first, they go the Soviet line, right? They take the Soviet line, which is to fight, right? Well, we saw what the Nazis did to the Soviets. 25 million people died in World War II. And the Chinese are thinking to themselves, how do we prevent that? How do we prevent a Nazi force coming in and murdering 50 million people in China and subjugating China again? And the solution that they came up with, which is considered to be Dangism, is a strategy of appeasement. That they say to the capitalists, okay, end the war, okay, and we will go to work for you. Bring your industry in, and we will work for you for cheap wages, right? We will subserviate a section of our economy to finance capital in order to end this war. And of course, this was widely criticized within China, the Maoists, right? The Maoists did not like this idea. That there was even an internal conflict. I don't want to say a civil war, that's too much, but definitely an internal conflict about it. The Group of Four had a bit of a rebellion over it. But the purpose of it, and the criticism was, oh, you're restoring capitalism, what all the Western Marxists say, right? And what the system of capital likes to say. Oh, a capitalist restoration, you're capitulating, this is the end of the communist project. And the Dengist response was, no, we are allowing a section of our economy, at the peak of the capitalist sort of infection in China, it was 40%. So it was never a majority of their economy. So 40% of the Chinese economy could be considered capitalist, privately held, right? And even then, it had to interact with the Chinese constitution, which includes things like workers' councils and includes this kind of stuff. And they admitted that when capitalism comes in, it's going to create inequalities. It's going to create these aberrations that we don't necessarily want to see in our culture. But as we move forward, we'll deal with those. We'll accept the wealth. We'll accept the means of production. We'll accept all of the benefits, and we'll accept the negatives with the hope that as we pass the baton to the next generation, they will work to smooth those out. And that's precisely what Xi Jinping has been doing. So the National People's Congress stands strong. The communists in China stand strong. The idea that China is as it is because of capitalism instead of in spite of capitalism, I think is wrong-headed. That China has had to capitulate a lot in order to avoid war, which has always been its goal. Avoid war with a war force, with an enormous aggressive force. So I hope that clears things up a little bit for you. Turner writes, yeah, let's get to the meat and potatoes of it, Turner, because I'm trying to be persuasive. I'm trying to convince you. I understand why you think the way you do, right? Where communism breaks down for me is the fact that although property becomes theoretically publicly owned, the power of the state enables a concentration of power and allocation of resources. Capitalism concentrates power too, by way of a concentration of wealth. However, capitalism provides incentives for regular people to trade their skills and products for value, incentivizing growth. So that's a lot, right? So the first section of it. So the communist theory is straight up that in order to confront the capitalist class, the state needs to control a percentage of the state needs to control the means of production for a period of time, right? So your criticism that allows the state to have a concentration of power and allocation of resources is accurate, but it's accurate insofar as it's necessary in order to fight back and push back against the capitalists that exist in your society. That the goal of communism is the elimination of capitalists as a class, right? And in order to do that, as far as the communist theory goes, you need a period of state control in order to use those productive forces to push against the capitalist class until the capitalist class is gone, at which point the state begins to relinquish power to the people. Right? That's the theory of how it goes. And so your criticism is literally the plan, right? Like that's the communist plan. And the reason why a pro-capitalist sees that as a negative is because it's literally a plan for the elimination of capitalism. It's literally a social strategy for the people who are pursuing a strategy to destroy capitalism, to destroy it. And so if you're pro-capitalist, I can understand why you would be against that, because it's the strategy that we're using to destroy you. So this capitalism concentrates power too, but capitalism provides incentives for regular people to trade their skills and products for value. Yeah, the withholding of food and shelter is an incentive, that's for sure, right? That's how capitalism incentivizes the trade, is that it withholds food and shelter, right? That assets, the means of production, are withheld from the public, right? We don't have access to the ability to create food. We don't have access to the ability to own shelter, right? Especially here in Canada, where nobody can buy a house. That's over, right? So that definitely incentivizes people to sell themselves. Like what you're describing is called wage slavery, right? Like I feel like the way that you discuss it is that you understand what's going on. You've just decided to believe that it's okay, when I prefer to say that it's not, right? That wage slavery is not a good system, that we can do better, and we should do better. That we just need to acknowledge that it's a system of wage slavery, and that most people's actual productive capacity is completely wasted appeasing a group of parasites who shouldn't be in the system at all. And then also, like, I make the argument that you say, incentivizing growth. Well, the only type of growth that capitalism actually incentivizes is the growth of the bank accounts of the rich. That's the only growth that it incentivizes. Because all decisions and all thoughts and all creative pursuit is bottlenecked by this small group of people who own the assets. Nothing can be created, nothing can be made, nothing can be popularized, nothing can be sent into the society without the express and explicit permission of this tiny group of wealth holders. And this tiny group of wealth holders are very dumb, limited in their limited in the way that they think about things, and limited in what they care about. Like, a guy like Jeff Bezos, for example, could literally fix homelessness in his own state at the very least, without even thinking about it, really. He could literally hire a group of people and just tell them, just fucking get houses for these people. Like, shut up. Be done with it. Why doesn't he do that? Because he doesn't care, right? Because the productive capacity of the society is bottlenecked by men like him. And so when you talk about incentivizing growth, well, what type of growth is being incentivized? What type of thinking does this incentivize? In what way is it beneficial for us to increase the wealth portfolio of 10 men? Like, how does it actually help the society? How does it actually benefit anybody to grow the wealth of a small group of people? And the argument that they've come up with, and the argument that we've been living under for 60 years now, is that the wealth will trickle down. Which, A, no it doesn't. And then, B, even if it did, you're literally just re-erecting feudalism. You're basically just saying that's the king, and all goodness and wealth gets sent from the king down to us. And so the type of growth that you're discussing is no benefit to the society at all. Because what we're doing, and what we are fundamentally doing, is grinding up human life, the air, the water, the land, and any asset that has any actual tangible value in the society. We grind that up so that Jeff Bezos can get an extra $10 billion so that he can go build some fucking yacht. Right? Like this is what's considered growth in the society. And I would say that under a capitalist model and under a capitalist system, under a communist system, right, or the pursuit of communism, socialism through to communism, the growth that would exist in the society would include things like feeding the poor, feeding the hungry, housing the homeless, right? That type of growth is not factored in to capitalist economies. They don't consider that to be growth, right? That if you eliminate homelessness from your society, that's not considered growth, right? If you increase the amount of wealth that the poorest people in your society have, that's not considered growth. The only type of growth that's measured is the bank accounts of the rich. That's considered growth. So, I know this is a common trope, but communism works great on paper. Realities are that we live in a world with finite resources. That's such a funny thing to say because the system of capital does not consider that to be true, right? The system of finance capital does not equate this idea that reality is we live in a world with finite resources. The entire theory, the entire thesis of growth postulates that infinite growth is possible. That's the perspective of finance capital. That while they have their supply and demand insofar as like they've got this graph and all this kind of stuff, like basic Adam Smith 101, like chapter 1, page 1 kind of stuff, their entire theory relies on the idea that growth is infinite. That there's no limit to the amount of growth that is possible within this finite system. That's like a hard truism of the system of finance capital. And so to accuse communism of believing that that's the case is sort of odd, I think. Especially as the communists are literally talking about like, no, workers should seize the means of production, eliminate parasites from the discourse in order to distribute those limited resources amongst the people who are actually doing the labor. Right? That's the main thesis of communism, that the people who actually do the work should be the primary beneficiaries of that work. Right? That like, it's not, it is actually that simple. That straight up, like, if I were to walk up to you and say, give me 50% of your wages, you would say, obviously, no. But if it was baked into the system that that's what you did, right? And you just went along your life like that, and I just took 50% of your wages for nothing, right? Like, would you be chill with that? Would you be okay with that? And communism basically just says, yeah, no, we shouldn't permit that. We shouldn't just allow people who do not participate meaningfully in production to just siphon wealth away because their dad was rich. Like, it's a silly way to run a society. It's just silly, frankly. So it's sort of odd. Turner writes, and in a world with evil people who look to take advantage of positions of power, the only power capitalists has is if they incentivize you to trade with them. Voluntary versus forced participation. To describe the system of finance capital as voluntary is odd. It's a very strange thing to do. If you do not sell yourself to capitalists, you do not eat. What is voluntary about that? In what way is that considered voluntary? That I guess you have the choice to which capitalist you would like to sell yourself to, right? I guess you have the freedom to pick your owner. You have the freedom to pick the person that owns you, like a piece of property, as they call you, human stock. But the idea that this arrangement is in any way voluntary is an odd, strange idea, and sort of convinces me, just simply on the face of it, that you're living in a state of capitalist realism. You just have inside of your mind, and I'm not offended by it, because I think it's natural. I shouldn't say natural, but it's obvious why that would be the case. There are a lot of methods of reinforcement to keep you convinced of this idea that capitalism is inescapable. That if you're actually trying to tell me that you think that what you are doing right now is a voluntary arrangement, then you've just bought into the idea that, yes, it's completely, totally normal. It's completely, totally normal that I have to pick somebody to sell myself to, and if I don't sell myself to anybody, I starve and die in the streets. That's a completely, totally normal thing to do. And if I would like to pursue my own labor and do my own labor for the benefit of myself, I have to do so through the permission of the capitalist class. I have to seek permission from capitalists in order to just do my own labor for the benefit of myself. Right? Don't you find that to be a touch odd? Don't you think it's a little strange that if all you wanted to do was do labor for the benefit of yourself, right, and just live a very simple, calm life, that at the very least, in order to achieve it, you would have to ask permission to the capitalist class first? Right? Like, one of the most silly things that capitalists will often say, well, why don't you just go into the woods and plant your own food then? Because I don't own any land. Are you going to give me land? Well, I'll sell you some land. Okay, well, therein lies the crux. So can I work for a while to make the money in order to get the land? Well, you got to pay rent, you know. Oh, okay, well, that's where all my money goes. You know, this tax that we call rent to landlords. Another voluntary arrangement, I suppose. You know, it's that or die in the street. So this idea that exists in your mind, that somehow the system of capital is a voluntary arrangement, I find to be very odd. I find that to be a very strange way to think about the world around you. And it really just kind of tells me that you've just capitulated. You've just capitulated and said that, oh, this is normal, when it's not. It's not too much different than like a small child just believing that, yeah, it's normal that when you come home, your dad beats you with a belt, gets drunk, and rapes mom. That's just what happens, right? That's what's happening to everybody, right? This is a normal life that's happening, right? And it isn't until you get a little bit older, you get a different perspective, or you go do something and you see a different way of looking at it, that you realize, oh my God, my dad was fucked up. That was fucked up what happened to me. Right? That it's difficult to see these things when you're in it and you just believe that it's normal. And you see this all the time. People will say this all the time, that they just thought that their upbringing, like, yeah, of course, it's just completely normal that that mom sits on the couch and stares wistfully out into the window and cries and then doesn't talk to me. And I watch just, you know, some television before I go to bed to wake up and go to school. That's just normal, right? So it's normal that that mom will make lunch for me, and the lunch will be rotten tomatoes, and she'll just send me to school with a lunchbox full of rotten tomatoes. That's just normal. That happens to everybody, right? That's what's happening to everybody, right? It's just normal for people to sort of assume that what's happening to them is what's happening to everybody, and that what's happening is a normal thing that's going on, when it's not normal. Like, it's not normal. Like, we sell ourselves to asset holders, and if we don't sell ourselves to those asset holders, we starve. That's the arrangement. It is called, and the Lincoln Republicans, Lincoln was elected on the platform of eliminating this system that we currently are under, which he called wage slavery. That this system is called wage slavery. That is what I call it. It is a non-voluntary system. We do not have the voluntary right to not participate. We cannot say, hey, can I just have a little parcel of land and grow food on that parcel of land and subsist on that parcel of land? You know what happens in Vietnam? Everybody in Vietnam gets a parcel of land that they can grow food on and they can subsist and live on. Luna Oi on YouTube has done great work on this. So that means that everybody in Vietnam owns something. Like, is that happening? So which is a more voluntary system? Which system would you describe as more voluntary? A system in which people who have no assets are forced to sell themselves to asset holders or else starve and become homeless? Or a system that literally says you get free land just for being a citizen and existing, and a place to live just for being a citizen and existing, and then you can interact with the society how you see fit. Which one of those two do you actually think is a more voluntary or less voluntary system? That guy that's working in the sewers is going to get pretty salty when their peers get to sit at home and write poems for fun. So yeah, this is just like a cartoonish version of what, like that's just like the propaganda version of what communism actually is that doesn't actually exist. There's literally no evidence that that occurs, right? It's just literally not the case. Like if it was the case that there were people just sitting and able to write poems for fun while I was going to sewers, I just stopped going to sewers, right? Right? Like when you actually think these propagandistic CIA kind of things through and you actually like realize how dumb they sound, right? Like, and I don't mean to kind of like, I use the most possible technical term I can find for things. And I'm sorry, like the only technical term that exists for this idea is that it's dumb. Right? That if people were just sitting around writing poems while one guy was going into a sewer, the guy would just stop going into the sewer. Right? Very straightforwardly. You wouldn't be going like, I'm going into that sewer, I'm going to do it, and the rest of you are lazy and late. He would just look around and be like, oh, everybody's just, and oh, okay, then I'll just do that. Right? And then you could start to engage, like, and if going into, because one of the things that happens under capitalism, because everybody has to have a job, right? Everything is you have to have a job. Well, so much of what we do is wasted labor. It's just a waste of everybody's time, right? David Graeber wrote a great book called Bullshit Jobs where he talked about this. We're just like so much of capitalist labor is just wasted bullshit nonsense to sort of justify the system itself. Everybody's got to have a job, right? And so what you're describing is a society that goes through and decides, yeah, this labor's not worth doing. It's not worth doing that. There's no value in that. So they just stop doing it. And then if it turns out that there is actually value in doing that, then the people will have a discussion about it. And the most common occurrence is that everybody just spreads the labor out. And everybody just says, okay, well, this labor does need to happen. This labor needs to happen. So you'll do a bit of that. 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 Well, I'll do that, right? And then the labor that needs to be done gets done. And the labor that doesn't need to happen stops being done, right? Like this idea that like everyone's just going to sit around and write poems and do nothing while one guy goes down into a sewer and he's going to get upset about it. No, he won't. He'll just stop. Unless he's an idiot, right? Like, and it's such a weird critique. Man, people will enjoy themselves. No, people will enjoy themselves? I don't know that people will enjoy themselves. People enjoying themselves, right? People enjoying themselves. I don't know. What happens is that there is an increasing demand for natural resources, which increases its international market prices, benefits other countries. Yeah, Bex writes, "You're locked within this very finite period of our history where class exists for hundreds of thousands of years. We worked due to our own needs, not the needs of the capitalist." Yeah, what we're experiencing is somebody who's bought into the concept of capitalist realism, right? That's what we're looking at. That capitalism is the end of history. This is the greatest system ever. It has its flaws, obviously, but it's a natural system, and there's nothing we can do about it. Just like the divine rights of kings, right? That when the divine rights of kings existed throughout Europe, people said the same thing, and they were like, "This is just the natural system. This is just how it is." And you just kind of expand your imaginative capacity and realize that no, it isn't. Like, capitalism didn't exist for the hundreds of thousands of years, right? If it continues to attempt to assert itself and attempt to exist, it'll destroy everything, right? Because that's the structure of the piece. And it's very obviously, like, the climate change disaster alone should convince you of that. Here's a good one. I'll just put this up. This is so fucked up. Yeah, good conversation in the chat here. Gavin, good to see you again, Gavin. There's a theory that says when market stabilizes and global welfare advances, we may unintentionally walk into communism. I mean, David Graeber had a really interesting point on this, which is that he said, like, we are all communists, right? That, like, when you're in a room with your friends and when you're with your family, you're a communist. Everybody acts like a communist, right? Nobody is saying you guys do all the work and I'll just take a percentage of it and do nothing, right? Nobody would tolerate that. Nobody would put that forward. Moreover, nobody would actually put that forward as a legitimate thing that should be done, right? Because we're all communists. That if you actually want to get into what is actually inherent and what is actually natural in the society, communism is what's natural, right? You naturally assume, if you get into a group of people, that everybody gets food, everybody gets shelter, right? That's just a natural assumption that people have. Nobody's talking about how, well, this guy doesn't get any shelter and this guy doesn't get any food, right? Like, if you washed up on an island with 10 people and there were 10 houses, right? Everybody would go, well, we each get a house. Right? Nobody would stand up and say, like, well, I own these houses, and so you need to work for me or else. Like, what are you talking about? And the only way such a structure could ever come into being in the first place is if, let's say, 5 of those guys just decided to beat the fuck out of everybody and erect this system, which is essentially how capitalism comes to be. Yeah, 40% of our food is wasted under capitalism. It's not a utilitarian system. Turner writes, okay, but if somebody wants to... Gavin writes, this is one reason as well why oil-rich countries are going crazy, because they have a rare resource, and we have huge global demands that only increase as higher proportions of people own cars. Well, yeah, and I mean, it's something of a gold rush, right? Like, and we know it's a limited resource, so we're burning it like crazy. We're striking while the iron's hot, right? Future generations are going to look at this period of time and think that we were insane. Like, oil is a very valuable resource, and we're literally burning it in cars. It's the stupidest thing that we could possibly do. I think that we are literally one step down or one step up from just taking matches and burning oil fields. Like, we might as well for the value that we're getting out of this thing. Like, the entire interstate system is just going to be a ruin in the future. People are just going to be like, what the fuck was this? What, you built this? Why? Because it's so dumb. It's the dumbest thing to do, right? And it was done completely because rich people were just like, We got to make a bunch of money and pitch the idea that everybody needs to own an automobile, and to justify the existence of the automobile, we got to build big interstate systems and big roads and big car-centric culture, big all this kind of stuff. We got to sell that idea, Cars are freedom, cars are freedom, cars are freedom, right? Buy a car, buy two, buy three, buy four, ha 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 ha. And in 200 years, people will be like, what do you mean you don't have a fucking high-speed rail system? Fuck, I'm like that right now. What do you mean we don't have a high-speed rail system? What are you talking about? What, you think you're an advanced industrial economy and you don't have a high-speed rail system? What are you, stupid? Like, what are you, fucking stupid? That's a stupid thing to think. That's a stupid way to organize things. What are you talking about? Everybody needs a car. Gotta buy a car. Yuckles? Capitalism. Yeah, the best system ever. Distributes resources fairly. Absolutely. If someone wants to work on themselves, great. Write poems, paint art. Who is going to grow the food? I'd love to sit at home and play guitar and have food in a house, but what incentivizes the farmer to break their back? So here's a real simple idea, right? Real straightforward, simple idea. We all just get together. We acknowledge that food probably should be grown, right? Because we're not fucking morons, right? We all say, okay, so a certain amount of labor needs to be put forward in order to grow the food. We all agree on this. And you could even build it into the education system, right? Be a real straightforward thing to do. Just as simple as like a little kid goes and reads a book because the teacher says so, right? And these sort of cultural expectations are super easy. And like, moreover, like, it doesn't take a lot of labor to grow the food anymore, right? Like, it used to take like 70% of the workforce in order to grow the food for the nation. Now it takes something like 2% thanks to automation, right? Like big giant combines and tractors and shit. So like the idea that this is a tough problem to solve, right? Like really, and I gotta say it, Turner, like, you're presenting this as if this is a difficult problem to solve, because I don't think that you want to take the step forward and realize that capitalism isn't an innate natural system. That it's possible that we do something else. Right? And you're putting that forward as if it's actually a legitimate problem, when anybody with any sense in their head would just be like, no, we all just sort of agree that everybody involves themselves in the labor process, right? Like, it's not difficult. Go pick apples for a season, right? Like literally, like, I come from a farming background. I come from rural Manitoba, right? Like, the work's not difficult. Like, you might think it is, but it's not. Truly, it's not. Right? There are moments of like, oh man, we got to do this, right? Oh my goodness, right? But like, you're telling me that a group of grade 12, like 18-year-old grade 12 kids, and we say, okay, graduation year, go out, work on the field for a season, right? Do the work, right? It's not difficult. You literally build it into the education system. You just say, oh hey, you want to be a citizen? Here's part of it. You gotta be involved, right? You gotta help grow the food. And I just feel like 95% of people are gonna be like, yeah, that's obviously true. Right? We just went through an education system, so this is part of the education system. We're gonna grow the food. It doesn't take that much effort. It doesn't take that much labor, right? Certainly there are moments, but it's not as overwhelming as the farmers certainly present it to be. And obviously the farmers will present it in that way because they want you to think that they're the god kings of the world, right? I'm growing the food. I'm the most important thing. This is the most difficult work that can possibly exist. Now I'm going to sit in my tractor and look at my phone. No, I don't work during winter. What are you talking about? So it's like a non-problem, you know? Like there's very easy, straightforward, obvious solutions. And if somebody basically just said no, then you just be like, okay, cool, so you don't get to be a citizen. Right? Like, you don't get to have a high school diploma. Right? Okay. Your freedom of choice. You can absolutely have the freedom of choice to not participate in the necessary work that we all agree must be done. So you don't get a high school diploma. So you don't get to be a citizen, essentially. Like, there are ways to incentivize people that isn't just go to jail. And the system of capital uses them too. Right? And a big incentive is simple, just basic peer pressure. People want to be respected in their communities. People want to be respected amongst people around them. People want other people to look at them and think well of them and be well regarded by the people who are around them. Right? That's what's natural. That's what's normal. Right? People want to be respected and have dignity in their own society. And you're telling me that somebody's going to basically say, I refuse to grow the food and have everybody look at them like, what are you, a fucking piece of shit? You garbage person? Holy fuck, what a loser. Because that's what I would do. And I think that's what everybody would do. Like, we all agree that the food needs to be grown, bro. Like, what are you fucking doing, you fucking loser? And then he doesn't get his high school diploma and he just falls behind and nobody gives a fuck about him. And he can just go sit in his room and write poems, I guess. Right? And just be a loser. And everybody will think he's a loser. Okay. Small price. I'll bite that bullet. Small price to pay. Duerte Colho. We got a couple of new people in here today, man. I like this. I like that there's new people coming in. Resource rich is what you call the countries in the periphery of the system, still serving under the neo-colonial pact that didn't die at the end of the 19th century, just got renewed in other ways. Strong comment. Is that your first comment, bro? Is that your first fucking comment? Look at this guy coming in and just being like, neo-colonial history. Boom. Boom. Fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant. Strong comment, my man. Instead of selling crude oil, they could have a sovereign industrial policy to refine it at home and revitalize several key industrial sites. But there's a whole system designed not to let them do it. Yeah, the system of colonialism is a big impediment to all of this. And that often also gets ignored, right? That, like, the system of finance capital and the system of capitalism has its tendrils everywhere, right? And it goes all the way back to the colonial period where Europe literally carved Africa up, right? So my favorite is, like, people within the industrial core will just be like, but capitalism has made us all rich. It's like, yeah, robbing people often makes you rich. It's why people rob people, right? It's like a train robber saying the best way to organize an economy is by robbing trains. Like, maybe not, bro. Like, doesn't work for the people you rob, obviously. And if your position is like, well, might makes right? I got away with it. What are you going to do? Well, then you're probably just a fascist, right? Guyana is a global south country. Over 3 years, came richer than Greece in terms of per capita wealth. The same reserve that Venezuela fights over in Essequibo. I mean, yeah, but all that wealth gets shipped over to the colonial powers, right? Like, it doesn't stay in Guyana. Like, Ashton, good to see you, Ashton. I worked at Best Buy during the new iPhone being released. There's nothing worth preserving in capitalism. Yeah, dude. It's like, once you kind of recognize, like, that the whole capitalist realism mindset needs to be kind of broken apart. Like, once you see that it's possible and that there are other ways for us to organize this, you really begin to see kind of how pathetic it all is. You really start to see how pathetic and sort of childish the whole thing is. This whole, like, waiting in line for a new iPhone. Like, what are you, a baby? Like, I understand wanting to go get a phone, but, like, basing a part of your personality based on getting the new iPhone while you still have a perfectly functioning iPhone? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Bex, good to see you. I haven't looked over at this chat for a moment. Bex, real good to see you, my man. Has a new bookshelf. You're steadily becoming one of my regulars. It's I love your name, and every time I talk to you, I feel like I can feel good energy coming from you, and it's probably because of that new bookshelf. It's probably what it is. I hope you're loading that bookshelf up with good stuff. Do you think Germany and EU leadership can be included in the ICJ lawsuit as co-defendants? I don't exactly know what the procedure of that is. I assume it can be the case, but will it is the question. So Germany wants to become a co-defendant because they are desperate to commit another genocide, clearly. Absolutely want that Fourth Reich to get up and running. So it could happen. I don't know that it would be good for them. Like, it's not a good look. I don't know why Germany constantly wants to be on the wrong side of history, man. Like, it just wants to do it at this point. Yeah, you could make mandatory for those in positions of power to spend X amount of time in agriculture. Cleaning is a mandatory part of life in society. Yeah. Like, we already do this. It's not tough to do. It's not difficult to do. Like, it's just a non-problem, right? Then how do you choose who goes into the sewer and who works as a busker? There's a lot of ways to answer that question. You seem really married to the like sewer idea. What you're actually going to find, man, and I know that nobody believes me when I say this, but it is actually the truth, is that there are people who are going to look at the problem and be like, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I'm interested in doing that. Right? Like, it is actually the truth. Like, this kind of comment always reveals that you have decided to have more faith in the system of capital than in the concept of humanity itself. Right? Like, you just decide that humanity is incapable of solving these problems, even though they did so for hundreds of thousands of years, outside of the system of capital. Right? Instead of just acknowledging that, like, if you just kind of let people do what they want to do and then present problems in like a rational way, where it's like, hey, we're all going to get together, we're all going to have a discussion, hey, we got a job, right? And instead of saying one person needs to work their entire life away, 100% of their life completely in a sewer, you say, okay, we need like 20 people to spread out some time. It's not a great job, but it needs to get done. We need people to go into the sewer, right? It'll be one day of your life every 2 weeks, right? People will sign up. And you know why I know that? Because if I was left alone, and told in this society, hey, John, you got to go pursue a job, and you got to be part of a system, and you got to be part of a job, you got to get a job within the structure. We're just going to let you do what you want to do, right? No weird incentive structures, no kind of stuff. I would be a funeral director. I would work with the dead, right? And I was doing that for a period of time. Why? Because it was work that was necessary. It was work that needed to be done. It was respectable work. It was honest work, even though the industry itself was quite corrupt. And that gave me a sense of respectability. It made me feel good about myself to do a job that other people understood was necessary, but not exactly something people wanted to do. Right? So this concept that you've got in your mind that nobody will do that. Yeah, of course they will. Of course they will. Because even though the job itself is dirty and messy or difficult, they understand that everyone's going to look around at them and be like, hey, bud, oh, you're that guy? Fuck yeah. Because that's exactly what happened to me. Right? That when I was walking around doing that job, nobody could tell me to get a better job. Nobody could tell me shit. Nobody could denigrate me or say fucking anything to me. And when I spoke, people listened. Because they knew exactly who I was and they knew exactly what I was doing. Like, it's sort of an odd position to say that dirty work won't happen. Now, dirty, pointless work won't happen. Work that is only for the benefit of a small group of worthless parasites won't happen. I don't care about that at all. I think that's a benefit. Yeah, it takes turn in the sewer. And again, like, there's no reason to structure this so that one person spends all their life in a sewer. Like, there's zero reason to do that. The only reason it's done that way is because it's easier for capitalists. Absolutely the truth. And what happens when someone refuses? Refuses what? Like, I don't understand what the point is there even. Yeah, the Soviets could organize a whole system without AI. I imagine what's possible with it. But that's not what it's going to be for, right? AI is going to be used for internal top-down dictatorships, businesses, right, to maximize labor profits, and to this is the true failing of finance capital, if you ask me, is that there's no what they call a planned economy, right, which they despise. That all of the AI tools will be used internally, that Walmart will use it, Amazon will use it, Microsoft will use it, but there'll be no system that actually connects those dots, right? So everybody will just constantly be competing, i.e. reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. Another way with it, which in capitalism wastes productivity, by the way. That instead of having one organization that's actually putting forward all of the productivity and everybody benefiting from that productivity and then taking that productivity and being like, oh, cool idea, let's do that here. And then erecting a new system based on that idea, right? Instead of that, ideas are hoarded, copyrighted, everybody needs to reinvent the wheel over and over again. Progress is stymied constantly because there is no system that goes over top of everything and says, oh, you're doing this, then that means that, oh, you're doing that, oh, that means that we can organize this and do this kind of thing here and all this. Oh, hey, here's an entirely new industry that came because we combined those two things, right? That doesn't happen under capitalism. In fact, quite the opposite. That individual systems will literally hire spies and saboteurs in order to like destroy each other and hold each other back. Like, the system of capital is one of the great myths of capital is that it's productive. What are you talking about? It's not productive. It's only productive if your measurement is the bank account of five men. If that's your measure of success, 5 guys get rich, then sure, capitalism works, right? What happens when someone refuses the shitty jobs? So if the entire society refuses to do the shitty jobs, which, I mean, again, I really struggle to understand, like, how that could possibly be. Like, it's literally never happened in human history. That just, the job that must be done just doesn't happen. Right? Like, it's just sort of an odd thing to say. Because there's like no, it just has never happened. Like, I just don't agree with that theory, right? You don't agree with humanity. You think that capitalist realism is what matters, and that the human experience never has occurred, right? That's yeah, very obvious. But if I have the option to sit at home and play guitar instead of shoveling excrement, I will. Well, but I feel like that's an easy thing to say, but I dare you to try it. Like, for real. Like, I dare you to try it. Like, the one of the major characteristics of humanity is restlessness, is boredom, is this sense of wanting to experience other things, wanting to experience new things, wanting to do other stuff. And it's easy for somebody who's embroiled within the system of capital where all you do is work, right? That's all you're doing, right? You wake up every single day, you go to a job that you likely don't like, to work for people who you've likely never met, in order to do a task that's probably not important. And because that's the system of capital, where everybody has to have a job, so nothing we do actually matters at all, except to sort of justify the system itself. And and you probably just need a vacation, right? And so we get into these conversations, and the thought that's in your head is, oh man, I would definitely just sit at home and play the guitar. Because that's what you would do if you had a vacation. But you don't get vacations. Because you live in the system of capital. Right? And you just don't understand what would actually happen if you were given the type of freedom that we're discussing. And because you've never experienced it for any moment in your life, your entire life has been wake up, go to a place you hate, do a job that's pointless, go home, watch TV, masturbate, go to sleep, wake up, do it again. That's been your whole life. That's the system of capital. And you've just accepted it as capitalist realism. This is the best we can do. Right? And my assumption is that if we actually did give people the freedom to exist in a society without those sort of pressures, that most people would at first act in that way, because nobody's had a vacation. Everybody's been living in this capitalist realist hellhole where the most amount of vacation that they get is like the 3-week kind of, if they get a vacation at all. Like, nobody gets vacations anymore. Nobody gets time off. That's not real. It doesn't exist. Like the brief scant little week here and there that you get. Yeah, okay. And what do most people do with their vacation? Got to do something special. I'm going to Paris. I'm going to travel. I'm going to go around. I'm going to do this. So you work more. So your idea is born from this place where you're saying to yourself, oh man, if I didn't have to work this pointless job for people I've never met, I would definitely just sit on my ass and play the guitar. Yeah, maybe for a bit. Maybe for a minute. Right? Like maybe for a little while. You'd get away with that. Right? And maybe for a little while people would look at you and be like, yeah, great. Haven't had a vacation in your entire life. Haven't had any time off. Right? It's not going to persist. It's just not going to persist. And you can see that in people who actually do end up getting that for themselves. Because it does happen. Where people are just like, they win the lottery. Here's a great example. This is an incredibly common story that happens. People win the lottery. And they never need to work again. And they say, that's it, I quit. I'm out of this job. I don't need to work anymore. Right? I'm going to go home and sit on my ass and play the guitar. Okay. And they do for a minute. Right? But then what happens? They get restless. They get bored. They get dissatisfied. They're not fulfilled by it. It doesn't actually give them what they want. Initially, they're happy because they have a vacation and they're no longer connected to the system of capital. You see, forget about lottery winners, people who retire. This is an incredibly common narrative. People who retire will tell you that they're busier now that they've retired than they were when they were working. Because when they were working, they were doing a pointless task for people they've never met. They hated it. And so they just kind of bumped around doing it. And they saw retirement in the future because retirement used to be a thing that people were allowed to do. And then when they retired, they actually set about doing the thing that they wanted to do and doing the stuff that they wanted to do. Right? And initially, perhaps they sat around and played the guitar, right? But people are dissatisfied. People want to do things and be respected and be part of society and be social and exist outside and talk to people and know people, right? And so the idea that like very important work that must be done will not happen, I just refuse. I just refuse to believe it because it's an absurdism. It's an absurd thing to believe. It's something that can only be bought into if you put an ideology ahead of the reality of what it is to be a human being. And the ideology that you've subscribed to is called capitalist realism. You've just bought into the idea that the defining characteristic of what makes a human is their value to the system of capital. And there's so much more to humanity than that. So much more to humanity than that. That a human being is a much larger concept than that, and a much more important concept than their value to the system of capital. So it just seems it seems an odd position to hold. We have communal living. If everyone wants to test out communism, go and join your local Hutterite colony. I mean, the Hutterites aren't going to let you in. I lived in a community where there were 3 Hutterite colonies. There were 2 Hutterite colonies right beside them, 4 First Nations reserves, and down the way there were more Hutterite colonies. If you walked up to a Hutterite colony and said, "Hey, I'd like to be part of your colony," they would tell you to go away. Like it's not that easy, my man. I know, dude, but who built and innovated the combine technology that allowed us to be able to lower the workforce dedicated to food? The workers. The workforce did that. It was the workers that innovated it. It was the workers that created it. It was the workers that designed it. It was the workers that made it. It was the workers that put forward the labor to do it, and it was the workers that brought it forward. And on top of all of that were worthless parasites that went, yep, there's value in that. That increases productivity. But they did none of the research, none of the development, none of the actual labor. They produced none of it. They created none of it. They literally just hold on to a paper that says, I own it. So the idea that it's capitalism that did all of that is, again, a bit odd, right? Capitalism doesn't create those things. It just benefits from the creation of those things. That these things happen in spite of capitalism, not because of capitalism. That the innovators in the society are often just weirdos tinkering, right? Like someone like Tesla, for example, right? Like Tesla has become kind of a famous version of it. Right, we all kind of know who this guy is, right? We all kind of know about Tesla, who is just like a weirdo who is tinkering mainly, right? Well, guess what? That's where innovation actually comes from. You just let a guy be alone tinkering, and he just creates stuff. And then people look at that stuff and go, well, that's awesome. Wow, thanks, random guy who's just left alone to tinker. Right? It's not some capitalist sitting in a boardroom, cigar in mouth, going, I know what we should do. I have a vision for the future. Capitalists are not visionaries. They lack vision. That's one of their defining characteristics, right? The visionaries are the people who are doing the work, see a combustion engine, right, which was created by some other guy that was just tinkering, and they think to themselves, I bet you we could use something like that here in the field. And then they tinker and they do and they mess around with it and they create the thing and they actually do something and they actually start to use it. And then the capitalist comes along and says, "Oh well, what a great innovation that this guy created. I'm going to claim it as my own, copyright it, and now you can't use it. And in fact, I'm going to charge you rent for using it." That's how capitalism actually works. Like, capitalism doesn't innovate. Capitalism doesn't create anything. The capitalists are a boil and a parasite on the side of humanity, siphoning the innovation and the creative force of humanity away into their own coffers. And of course they send out the signals and send out the messages and send out the propaganda to say, this is all because of capitalism and not in spite of it. Because they're desperate to make sure that they can continue doing fuck all, sitting on their asses doing nothing. Nothing important, anyway. Nothing for the benefit of the society. Marx actually makes the argument, and I agree, that they are actually a negative drain on the society. Like, you think about what's the productive activity of a capitalist? Well, it's making something like Epstein Island, right? That's a negative drain on the society. Epstein Island is a negative drain on the society, right? And that's what capitalist productivity actually looks like. That's your actual capitalist innovation right there. It's not making combines, which is something that the workers do, and the workers made, and the workers created, and the workers designed, right? No, it's when capitalists have ideas, it's how can I have sex with little girls? Those are capitalist ideas. I'm a farmer myself, LOL, so be careful about calling farmer not hard work. Look, look. Turner, okay, let's level with one another on the farming point, okay? Straight up, okay? Farmers like to play this game where, and we all know this is true. Like we definitely know this is true. I grew up around farmers. I talked to farmers. Farmers want us convinced that the labor that they're doing is the hardest possible labor that exists, and that they are god kings for doing so. I'm not going to deny that farming is difficult work. I've done a lot of different jobs. Farming is as difficult as any other job. It's not easy work, but it's not this really crazy, difficult psycho work that farmers pretend like it is, right? Like when I rag on farmers all the time, is because my background is growing up around these conservative farmer types who are just dead set to convince you that like teaching isn't a real job, but what I do where I get 4 months of the year off is a real job for sure. And I'm not trying to say farming isn't a real job, but like I'm just sort of exhausted by these farmer types who are really dead set convinced that like it's especially bad in rural Manitoba. I'll tell you why it's especially bad in rural Manitoba, Turner. It's because you got all of these farmers living on land that was given to them by their fathers, that was given to them by their fathers, that was given to them in the largest government handout in the history of the nation, called the Canada Dominion Act, right? The Homesteaders Act in America, where a single individual, a British man, a white British man, obviously, can move into the area and for free, with like a little administrative fee, like something the equivalent of $100 today, be given by the government 360 acres of free land. Here's just 360 acres of land for you to have because you moved here. Make sure you work the land, which if you can't make your fortune clear-cutting and selling the lumber on land that was just given to you by the government, then I don't know what the fuck you're doing, right? And then that land gets passed to a son, that gets passed to a son, that gets passed to a son, and then all these farmers say, I got what I got because of my hard work, and you're just being lazy. Government handouts are bad. That's what kills me about farmers. That if these guys actually had a lick of awareness, they would understand that they are where they are because they are the primary beneficiaries of the largest government handout that's ever occurred in the nation's history. And where did that land come from? Certainly wasn't expropriated from the people living on that land. You know, the way capitalism does. Comes in, clears the land of the indigenous population, right? Creates a genocide, gets rid of them, steals that land, gives it to the white population to increase the population base. Like, that's your capitalist innovation right there, bud. So that's how that's the big reason why I go after farming and farmers. The capitalist provides capital to the guy tinkering in the field. Where did he get that capital from, my man? Oh, he got it from the worker who created the work in the first place. Right? When you actually follow the chain, right? All capital comes from labor. Capital just doesn't appear from the sky. It doesn't just go like, woo, capital. All capital is derived from labor. Abraham Lincoln said that. That if you are to compare capital and labor, then labor holds the greater part. Because without labor, you get no capital. And the system of capital says, I get to withhold capital from the laborer and then say to the laborer, if you would like to innovate, then you need to get permission from me, the holder of the capital. It's a silly idea. It's a silly, silly, silly idea. It's a silly system. Another new guy, Tim Smith. Kami, do you think that people arrested should do unpaid work? Look, if what to do with criminals is a big conversation. It's a real big conversation. Modern society says take criminals and put them in cages. There are lots of things that can be done with criminals. Do I think that people arrested should do unpaid work? I mean, it's often the case that occurs because they're useful, right? Do you ever allow people to come on the live stream for you to discuss? No. I don't find that to be interesting or productive. And every time I've done it, I've hated it. It's been very annoying. It's been very, very annoying. It essentially turns into basically Voshism, which not interested. Not at all interested. Like this way, it keeps things clean. It keeps things easy. It keeps things obvious. It keeps things straightforward. I don't have to deal with somebody constantly interjecting and trying to dunk. That's the worst. That's what makes it terrible, actually. Like the dunking. They're like, oh, dunk. And then I got to do this. This is what happens every single time. Because people watch like Destiny and Vosh and all these hacks and frauds. And people like Shapiro, hey, you got to go after the left. Got to go after the left. The only reason to talk to the left is to humiliate them. Right? So, like, it's in the zeitgeist to dunk on people. That's how people want to have these discussions, and that's what does happen. The idea that, oh, I won't dunk you. Yeah, you will. What always happens? So what always happens every single time is that somebody attempts to interrupt, right? Do a dunk. And then I've got to hold on to the point that I was trying to make, ignore that they've just embarrassed themselves, try not to point out that they've embarrassed themselves, push that aside, make the decision whether I want to complete that point, which I usually would like to do, and then turn to address this embarrassing point that they've brought up because they're trying to dunk. And then in the process of all of that, they usually just interrupt and try to do another dunk. So, yeah, I know you say that, my man. Right? Lots of people have said that. So I just don't do it. I'm not interested. So you're not going to convince me. Like it's hard pass from me. Nope. Hard pass. Go watch Vosh. If you want to watch that kind of boring, lame discourse that is uninteresting, not at all like if you just want to keep the discourse in this sort of low level, right? You can go watch Vosh. That's exactly what he does. Right? It's boring, it's tedious, you learn nothing, and it just confirms your bias. So that's what that results in. And I'm again, hard pass. 0%. 0% interest. No longer interested in this conversation. And Astron, I might change my view. So there's a 0.1% if the person was a total hunk. Yeah, okay, Astron, you got me. You got me, my man. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about Duarte. Don't worry about it. Don't Google him. Don't look him up. Don't worry about it. Just move on with your life. If you've ever taken any piece of advice from anyone in your life, take this piece of advice. Don't worry about it. I don't want to watch people be sarcastic with people unless one of them is going to give the other a fat lip. It's okay, Astron. I understand. No, it just look, part of the thing that I've really encountered, and I have such a low tolerance for this, is that people want to talk to me because they think they've got a point to make. And this does make me sound arrogant. I'll admit it. This sounds a bit arrogant. Okay? And I'm fully aware of how arrogant this is going to sound, but this is the conclusion I have. This is the thing that I've come to understand. People want to talk to me because they think they have a point, and they don't. That's the truth. That what they have is a history of living in this kind of capitalist realist mindset, of being heavily indoctrinated in a system that's designed to heavily indoctrinate them. And I'm genuinely not interested in having a discussion with someone who's in that situation as if they know something. Because the hard truth is that they don't. That they oftentimes don't know anything about the history of communism. They oftentimes don't know the history of the labor movement. They don't know the history of the civil rights movement. They don't know the history of their own country. And so everything that comes out of their mouth is just what the system of propaganda is saying. And I'm not really interested in having a debate with the system of propaganda. Not really, really interesting. Right? And moreover, I don't think it's an interesting, I don't think it's interesting viewing. I just don't think it's interesting viewing. I actually, like, anytime I tune into these people who are doing the thing that you're describing, I find it to be so boring. And boy, howdy, is it not what I want to put into the universe. If you want to read an interesting book, if we're going to talk books, Michael Parenti's Black Shirts and Reds. That's a great book. Duarte says, I'll take the advice. I rarely watch English speaking for commenting on politics, so I don't know good content creators. Yours is the first I found. And fucking home run, buddy. Home run, Duarte. Right out of the park. The first one you found is the best one you found. Well done. You did it, Duarte. Tell people I exist. Tell people I exist. That's all I ask. If you want to give me some money or if you want to do the kind of thing, fine. But but tell people I exist. Yeah, and that's the other part. Anytime I watch these debates, it really does just come down to, like, it's so that both of them can pull a 5-second clip out and put it on their YouTube shorts for advertising. That's really what it comes down to. And I'm just not... Anyway, I'm going to move on from this because, boy, howdy, do I not like it. Gavin writes, there's two views on this. By unpaid work, the people at least doing something productive... Oh, this is about prison labor. They're doing something productive instead of just being arrested. Like, they are contributing to the society the harm they did, like social payment. Let's assume, for the sake of the argument, that the person who is being arrested is being legitimately arrested. Like, they legitimately did the thing. Like, if I don't care to go down the rabbit hole of the illegitimacy of the American prison system. Like, the illegitimacy of the American legal system has been really well documented. Matt Taibbi wrote a really great book called The Divide that I think should be required reading. It's the reason why people really went after Matt Taibbi, because he wrote this really phenomenal book that really exposes the illegitimacy of the American legal system in big and serious ways. Like, the American penitentiary system, America has 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prison population. Like, it's an illegitimate system that exists specifically to create unpaid prison labor. That's the reason why that system exists. It's to enrich capitalists through a system of penitentiary labor. And so you literally end up with systems. So what they do, I know I said I wasn't going to go down, but too bad, here we are. So what they do is you have judges, you have a legal system that creates quotas for cops, quotas that they know they can't be met legitimately, right? And so cops go out, and in order to meet the quota, right, they just pick people up off the street for fucking nothing. Right? They just grab a guy who's standing on the street corner, give him a fine for loitering or for some bullshit thing, And that forces that person to then go in front of a judge, right? Which just packs the legal system. And then what you end up with is a system that is generating fines that people can't pay, where people have to travel a great deal, and then in many cases people, like, they build up enough of these, right? And then finally they just say, oh well, 3 strikes you're out or whatever, so now you do jail time. And then you end up in a jail system that fucking literally loses track of you. I read an article on this stream that was all about how people on Rikers Island just get thrown onto Rikers Island and left there. Like, it's a horrific system that exists all throughout the United States. And so the idea that there is, like, a legitimate way to organize prison labor under a system that is as illegitimate as the American prison system, it just makes it very difficult to have a serious conversation, because it's like having a conversation while ignoring this big glaring monster. And so then it takes you into this, like, theory place. And I think that there's a bunch of things that could be done instead of just simply taking a person and putting them in a cage as punishment, right? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not interested in, like, the Talking Heads debate. It's just. I'm good. Like, really. Like, I'm good. Milo, buddy, what's going on? What's good? Collabs are more promising. Pan-Ontarian activists collab on plan of... Yeah, I mean, that would be a different story, I think, but it just, look, like, no, I've already said my piece on it. I'm not going to bother. So, in terms of prison labor, right? Like, I think that there's a bunch of things that you could do. There's a bunch of ways that we could dispense punishment. And, of course, the American prison system wants prison labor. So that's the solution that it has. You do any crime and it's prison labor, right? And so, of course, they incentivize crime. Right? Like, the whole war on drugs is a way to criminalize an entire groups of people for the crime of doing what? Like, normal shit, like picking plants off the ground. Like, oh no, people do drugs. Did you guys know? Right? And then we've got, like, huge amounts of documentation that shows very clearly that the CIA will grow opium overseas and then bring that opium into America, dispense it out so that they can justify their war on drugs. Right? It's just this whole fucking cycle where you have enormous institutions that are incentivizing crime and that criminalize certain activities, specifically so that they can generate prison labor. So it's so difficult for me to have a conversation about prison labor in a way that is satisfying. Right? Don't Google Vosh under any circumstances. Yeah. Well, Turner, it's been a pleasure. I hope you get to keep all of the value of your labor. Have a good night, Turner. It was good talking to you, bud. And Turner, before you go, thank you for being polite. Thank you for being polite. I value that more than anything. So thank you so much for being polite. Gavin writes, percentage of black Americans in the U.S. general population, 13%. Percentage of people in prison jail who are black, 37%. Yeah, worth pointing out. Right? Worth pointing out. So, moving to some of the links that I've got. Pierre Poilievre. Canadians aren't buying Trudeau's excuses for inflation. Bank of Canada data shows Canadians blame high government spending for inflation. Just inflation, not worth the cost. Thank you, Turner. I appreciate that. That's high praise. Thank you. Consumers think domestic factors. I didn't want to show you this because of Pierre Poilievre. I wanted to show you this because of this fucking poll, and then I've got a great poll right here. Consumers think domestic factors are keeping inflation high. What is the most important factor affecting the ability of the Bank of Canada to control inflation in Canada? High government spending is number one. I consider this to be a massive, massive propaganda win for the system of capital. Directly under it, businesses trying to increase their profits, right? You can see, look how low, it's half. It's like half. It's it's actually about as much as labor shortages. People just being like, yeah, labor shortages. That's what's causing inflation. Labor shortages are what cause inflation. Consumer demand is what's causing inflation. Global conflicts causes inflation. Supply chain issues. Oil and energy prices. Climate change, almost nothing. High government spending, boom. Huge. Everybody's like, the government's spending too much. The government's spending too much. That's raising inflation for sure. Businesses trying to profit while they literally brag about how much profits they're making. Literally standing in front of you being like, I can't believe how much more money I have right now. Almost nothing. Half as much. I consider that to be a massive, 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 massive propaganda win for the system of capital. Like, what a clear evidence. What clearer evidence do you need to see that the system of capital's propaganda works? That it works and it's effective than this. High government spending is what's causing inflation. Not businesses trying to increase their profits. High government spending. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah. High government spending doesn't mean much. China spent 30 years spending and growing at a 10% rate. Complex topic. Heterodox economy is really a fraud in my view. Orthodox. Yeah. Look, man, you're talking to a guy. You're new here, Duarte, so you haven't heard me talk about this yet, but you're talking to a guy who thinks that Western economics is a priesthood. And I'm not saying that facetiously. The name of the cast, the name of the show is Capitalism is a Death Cult. I'm not saying that facetiously. I literally believe that is literally true. That economists are priests, that they preach an ideology to us, that ideology is couched with the language of economics, but is in no way actually economics. That what Western economists do in regard, their relationship to economists is the same relationship that Hulk Hogan has to boxing. So when you talk about the fraudulent nature of Western economics, or orthodox economics, if you like, or classical economics, you're talking to a guy who believes that so thoroughly that I argue that what we're looking at is a religious organization. And that religious organization is known as Western economics. I could keep talking about that, man. Holy cow. It's wild that there's this like religious cult at the center of the society that operates openly in front of us all the time. And we are all just like, this is the normal thing that's definitely normal. Yeah. An economy that condemns them to death. Like, I mean, you take a look at what's going on with climate change. Like, the system of capital is literally generating the death of humanity. It's literally doing that right in front of our eyes. Like openly in public. It's openly generating the death of humanity. And we all are just like, that's normal. That's a science for sure. Sure, bud. Yeah, sure. Definitely a science that excludes from their evidence human life. Like what is an organization that externalizes the impact on humanity, on the land, on the air, on the water, and on the future of their own children? What is that if not a death cult? How else could you describe this? What language could you use in order to try to find out, well, what is the nature of Western society? Because it's not rooted in anything real. It's not rooted in a material analysis. If they were rooted in a material analysis, they'd be Marxists, right? So they're not rooted in a material analysis. So what do they root their analysis in? Well, they root their analysis in an ideology. And what is that ideology? What's the structure of that ideology? What's the nature of that ideology? And when you look at the nature of the ideology, there's 3 prongs to it. What I like to call the unholy trinity of the capitalist death cult. The first is the worship of money. That money is itself the end goal. That money is not a tool for us to use in order to do things, that the accumulation of money is itself the goal. And that those who have money are natural and good, and that the only decisions that have any merit is the ones that benefit myself. Right? This is all stuff that they've said out loud. The goal is to worship money. Right? The goal is that everyone makes self-interested decisions. So it's the worship of the self. And then the final prong of the religion is the worship of chaos. What they describe as the free market. Right? We'll let the free market decide. How is that statement any different than saying, let chaos reign? So what you end up with is a group of people that are willing to pollute the air, the water, the land, murder their own children, commit genocides in order to get pieces of paper or numbers on a screen so that they can measure who the best person is as they bow before a god of chaos. That's the actual structure of Western capital. That's the actual nature. That's the actual ideology of Western capital. And all of that can be boiled down into a very succinct statement of what capitalists actually believe, which is more money, me good. That's it. Yeah, it's the fetishism of money. As Peter Lawrence said, you exchange the gods for money itself as the goal of happiness fulfillment. Yeah, that's exactly what's happened in Western society. That when I was growing up, people would kind of say that facetiously. There would kind of be like an eye-rolling sort of thing. No, it has happened. That is exactly what has happened. And it is as serious a god as that Zeus was to the ancient Greeks. That the Oracle of Delphi was to the ancient Greeks. That Thor was to the Norse, right? That Ra was to the Egyptians. That Jesus is to the fundamentalist Christians. It's as serious a God as that. That and that they are willing to say, oh, this insignificant piece of paper is what is going to incentivize our actions. That this is the only thing that makes people decide anything. Like, that's a yikes from me, my man. That's a yikes from me. Speaking of yikes, this is an article that I want to read aloud. I haven't read this article yet, but the headline intrigued me so much that I thought we would all go through it together. From Time magazine, new polling shows how much global support Israel has lost. New data shared with Time from the business intelligence community Morning Consult shows that support for Israel around the world has dropped significantly since the war in Gaza began. Net favorability, the percentage of people viewing Israel positively after subtracting the percentage viewing it negatively, dropped globally by an average of 18.5 percentage points between September and December, decreasing in 42 out of 43 countries polled. Wow, actually. Wow. That's way more dramatic than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, Zionists get wrecked. I'm going to read that again because that's huge, actually. The net favorability, the percentage of people viewing Israel positively after subtracting the percentage viewing it negatively, dropped globally by an average of 18.5 percentage points between September and December. September, October, November, December. In 4 months, the global view of Israel dropped by almost 20%. In 4 months. Holy shit. That's precipitous. That's literally like that's huge. That's a breakup. That's a straight up breakup. That isn't somebody just being like, I didn't like that. That's not just a person just being like, I don't know about that. Raspberry, I'll get to you. Lots of new people in the chat today. I love it. I'll get to you. Just stick around for a minute, okay? I'm dealing with this Time magazine right now. This is a fucking breakup. This is straight up just like, no, unacceptable. Precipitous drop. Boom. China, South Africa, Brazil, and several other countries in Latin America all went from viewing Israel positively to negatively. And many rich countries that already had net negative views of Israel, including Japan, South Korea, and the UK, saw steep declines. Net favorability in Japan went from negative 39.9% to negative 62%. In South Korea, went from negative 5.5 to negative 47.8. In UK, from negative 17.1 to negative 29.8. The data shows just how tough of a road Israel has right now in the international community, says Sonnet Frisbee, deputy head of political intelligence at Morning Consult. I want to pause for a second. This person's name is Sonnet Frisbee. I just think that that's worth pointing out. That there's a person in the world whose name is Sonnet Frisbee. That's great. The war began on October 7th when Hamas massacred some 1,200 Israelis and took 240 hostage. Israel's retaliation has resulted in the reported deaths of at least 24,000 Palestinians, most of them women and children. Last week, the International Criminal Court took up South Africa's case, charging Israel with committing genocidal acts in Gaza. This is just the system. The U.S. remains the only rich country that still had net positive views of Israel. Common USL. Net favorability dropped just 2.2 percentage points from a net favorability of 18.2 to a net favorability of 16 in September to December. Proof that the American propaganda system is still very effective. Right? Proof that the Americans are fairly impenetrable in regards to their capability to understand what's going on around them. Washington's support for Israel carries a cost of global public opinion, however, particularly in Arab countries. The survey shows in Egypt, the U.S. went from having positive favorability of 41.1 to a negative favorability of 14.9. Wow. In Egypt, the U.S. went from having a positive favorability of 41% to a negative favorability of 15%. Wow. That is a precipitous. That is crazy. That's a crazy drop. Holy shit. That is literally a shift from like, these Americans are okay, yeah, to like, fuck these, fuck, get fucked. Wow, that's precipitous. In Saudi Arabia, the U.S. saw a similar trend, dropping from a positive favorability of 12% to negative 10% over the same period. Wow. Wow. Frisbee says the shift will make it difficult for Saudi Arabia to continue cooperating with Israel and pursuing a planned normalization deal brokered by the U.S. A lot of cooperation between Gulf leaders and Israel has been done with Gulf leaders carefully messaging to their domestic populations and tiptoeing around public opinion. I think this gives a lot less space to do that, Frisbee said. That's the reason why Hamas did it. That's the reason why they did it. That statement right there is the success of Hamas. That's Hamas winning right there. Because what was happening in the world, what was happening in the region is that the United States, it started under Trump, was attempting to broker deals between Israel and Saudi Arabia, Israel and Egypt. It was trying to make it so that Israel had larger, wider allies in the region. It was trying to push Israel into the Middle Eastern community and get real trade connections and real agreements in place between other nations. And Hamas knew that if that started to happen, if Saudi Arabia and Israel created agreements and alliances with one another, that was the death of Palestine. That was the death of Hamas. That was the death of the Palestinian people. And so they did what they did, knowing full well what the response would be. And why did they do it? A lot of the cooperation between Gulf leaders and Israel has been done with Gulf leaders carefully messaging to their domestic populations and tiptoeing around public opinion. I think this gives this a lot less space to do that. That's a victory. That's a victory for the people of Gaza. That's a victory for the Palestinian people. That Israel remains isolated. It remains isolated, and it has been exposed. It's been exposed. Ugh. Yeah, the war began on October 7th. Yeah, history began on October 7th. Don't you know, Duarte? So, Raspberry. Let's talk to you, Raspberry. Why do you believe the climate is changing? Come on. I have a thing. Yeah, that's what I want right there. So, might as well put this up. I love this video. This is an important video. The climate is changing because we are burning fossil fuels. Those burning fossil fuels releases carbon into the atmosphere. The carbon that gets released into the atmosphere collects in the atmosphere so that when UV radiation comes in, it can't escape. It gets caught inside the system and steadily heats the planet. And as we release more carbon into the atmosphere, more UV radiation gets caught. And so what's going to happen is that, and we're seeing it happen, is that the Earth will begin to heat up more and more. Global average temperatures will continue to rise. And this will result in all of the things that you expect to see when a system heats up. And what should you expect to see? You should expect to see ice melt, right? Which is going to result in water levels rising. you should expect to see extreme weather patterns. Because what will happen is droughts will last longer, so more water will get sucked up into the system, which means that it will go along, and then there will be more furious storms because there'll be more water that has been sucked up into the system. It'll make storms more dramatic. It'll make droughts more dramatic. It'll basically make No. There is evidence the moon is getting further, so the Earth freezes out. What are you talking about? Source required, okay? Raspberry writes, I've been to Israel. It's so beautiful. Yeah, the occupied Palestinian territories is a beautiful place. Yeah, you see old architecture, all the towns that look ancient. Yeah, back when they were Palestinian. The food is very old, the language, beautiful women. If you go to Israel, you see the people, the culture, the place is beautiful, right? I mean, it's largely because Israel is subsidized, right? Like they get free education, they get free healthcare. Israeli life is largely subsidized, and so it's easy to kind of go about and have a relaxed life when the United States government is essentially paying for your life, right? So of course it looks lovely. And this kind of statement, the government thumbs down. So Time magazine did a poll of the people of Israel, asking them, hey, do you think the Netanyahu government is using too much force, not enough force, just the right amount of force in Gaza? Keeping in mind that what is happening in Gaza is a genocide. Netanyahu has been very explicit about his intention to commit a genocide. Most of his ministers have been explicit in their intention to do a genocide. The poll came back. 30 to 40% of people said that they were not using enough force in Gaza. 60% of people said that they were using the right amount of force in their genocide. Only 2%, the number's actually 1.8%, 2% of the population said that they were using too much force. So this whole idea that it's the government bad, nope. What we are looking at is a culture where kids are indoctrinated from a very young age to view the Palestinians as subhuman. It is Israeli supremacy. Just like how the Nazis had Aryan supremacy, the Zionists have Israeli supremacy. You have to consider that the people will be biased. Yeah, biased to a genocide. Like nationalism. Yep, most Nazi ideologies are nationalist. In fact, all Nazi ideologies are nationalist. So the argument that you have to consider that Nazis are nationalist, Zionists are nationalist. Yeah, I know. If you were born and raised in Israel, you would think differently. Probably not. Like, assuming that my life plan was similar to the one I have now, I would be in that 2%. And how do I know? Because I speak out to my own country when my own country funds, organizes, and honors Nazis. Which we do. I mean, we fund Israel, after all. Yeah, people have a tendency to do that, right? That's true, right? But what we're seeing in Israel is an indoctrination system. Is a full-scale system of supremacy. It's beyond a bias. It's not as simple as just like, well, yeah, I'm a Canadian and I like Canadians. I mean, it's sort of odd that you're saying this while talking to a guy that is highly and heavily critical of Canada. I'm heavily critical. I don't defend Canada. Like, I don't. I actually make the argument that Canada probably won't survive through the next century. As like an organization, certainly not in this structure, in the way that it is now. That it's not possible to keep this project going in the manner by which we are doing it. right? You can't keep a project going by abandoning it, which is exactly what we're doing. So it's highly likely that it's not going to survive moving forward. And I actually think that that's largely true of sections of America as well. That it's pretty unlikely that the United States of America remains intact. Because you can't keep a country this size going while actively abandoning the citizens. It's just not going to work. No. What Israel considers, I don't give two fucks about. Like, I don't care if they consider it a war or no, it's not a genocide. It's a war. Yeah, I'm sure that the drunk father who beats his children thinks that they deserved it and that he has the right to do it. I'm sure, right? I don't give a fuck. It is a genocide. The fear is that the ICJ won't describe it as a genocide. That the people committing the genocide can deny it all they want. It's a fucking genocide. Right? Yeah, and you can't call it a war. Like, one side can literally turn the electricity off on the other side. What are you talking about? Like, a war assumes that both sides are actually in a conflict with one another with a certain degree of parity. One side can literally turn off the other's water. What are you fucking talking about? AK. That's a ridiculous. It's so funny. American capitalists build a wall to keep people out, while communists build walls to keep people in. When have communists built walls to keep people in? I'd make the argument that historically speaking, America has been a progressive force throughout history. Yeah, just go talk to the First Nations people and the African population about that. When compared to other powerful empires through history, I mean, you want to take the psychos and basically do a lineup and say which one of these psychos is the most psycho. I mean, like, the Roman Empire was like publicly crucifying people, so I guess if that's your bar, right? It's just kind of an odd conversation to have, right? You know, these American psychos, you know, you should have seen the psychos from the past. They were real psychos, those psychos. What a lot of Israel's supporters think is that this is not a genocide and that Hamas attacked Israel when Israel was quiet. It is kidnapped and taken people. Like, yeah. Right? There's a reason why public opinion of Israel has plummeted. Right? There's a reason why public opinion of Israel has plummeted, and it's that not only are they committing a genocide, they're denying it. Like, gross. These people are Nazis, right? The only reason they're talking to you is to deceive you or terrorize you, right? They're not interested in telling you the truth. Right? And of course they want you to let them commit a genocide while also sucking their cock. Like, of course they want that. Well, tough shit. You're committing a genocide. You're doing genocide apologencia. Right? Genocide apologetics is what this would be called. This isn't a genocide. This is technically this is a conflict. It's not a genocide. Nope, not a genocide. It's a fucking genocide for sure. For absolute fucking sure. Like, it's so much a genocide that if the International Court of Justice doesn't declare it a genocide, the global population will say, oh, this organization has been discredited. Like, it no longer has the right. Like, I am of the opinion that if the International Court of Justice does not declare it a genocide, their membership will plummet. It will literally lose credibility on the world stage to that degree. Like, the entire international community, and when I say the international community, I don't mean just Europe and the United States. I mean Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Russia, Latin America, South America. will literally just be like, "Oh, you're just not a credible organization, so we're going to leave." Right? That's exactly what will happen. Because what is happening in Gaza is 100% a genocide. How do I know? Because the leadership has said it's a genocide, the ministries have said it's a genocide, the generals have said it's a genocide, the soldiers on the ground have said it's a genocide. That literally we've got quote after quote after quote after quote after quote of these guys saying that our goal is to cleanse the land. We've got the Jerusalem Post publishing articles saying that the goal is to cleanse Gaza. Like, if this is not a genocide, then genocides do not exist. What? Dude, you're using the Berlin Wall? Like, you know the Nazis exist, right? Like, you are aware of the Nazis, right? Has a new bookshelf. What do you view as appropriate policies to keeping a socialist society safe and secure? I mean, this was answered by Lenin, right? Like, this is the reason why the proletariat needs to take control of the state. That the goal of the communist project is the withering away of the state. That's the goal of the communist project, is to have the state wither away and go away, and that people no longer need to abide by it. But and that the argument is that the state will wither away of its own accord, right? But as long as there is an external threat, as long as there is like a capitalist external threat, finance capital, you need a strong state run by the proletariat in order to stamp capitalists out, right? You can't have you just can't willy-nilly go around do what you like, right? Like, capitalists will roll over you. So what do I view as appropriate policies to keeping a socialist society safe and secure? A strong, well-regulated proletariat military. Right? That's the appropriate policies. AK, I seriously think that under Trump this genocide would not have happened. No, I think you're wrong. I think it can be made. The argument can be made that Trump is a big impetus for all of this. That it was Trump brokering deals between Israel and Saudi Arabia that leads to October 7th occurring. Because if those deals had have gone through, it would be the death of the Palestinians for sure. And like like, maybe Donald Trump could have stood up and like saber rattled and made some threats, but I just think it would have been too little, too late. That the response from Israel has been dramatic and emotional. I believe the Earth is flat. Hold on, Raspberry. Come on, Raspberry. Do I want to do it? Like, Raspberry, we have been in space. We have taken a picture of the Earth. We have pictures of the Earth from space. Like, this is what kills me about flat earthers, man. Yeah, Cotton, people really, really want to believe that Trump isn't himself a turbo-Zionist. Yeah. He said so himself. Y'all need to get on board that Trump is wrong about many things. Yep. Like, AIPAC is a real organization that really exists, right? And it has real influence in the society. It's just because I have more closer proof that it's flat. What's your proof? Raspberry, right? Picture of Earth from space. What's your proof? Let's go. Let's do it. I'm in the mood. Let's go. What's your proof? No, no, no. I think I know what he's gonna say. I think I have a guess. What's a good picture to use through all of this? Uh, uh, Picture of Earth from space. Astronaut? I don't know why I want an astronaut. I was making a Metal Gear reference. A little obscure for me, my man. I gotta tell you. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Here's a good one. Nah, I'm not gonna use that one though. I just think I don't want like an AI picture. I'd love something that's like real. You know, man, I love it. I know what picture I want. Oh yeah, here you go. This is a good one. View image. Because look, I can see at the beach and it doesn't look round. And the model of flat is convincing. All you have is round earth is claims and computer design gloves. No, no, I've got people who have been in space who have taken footage and photographs of the earth from space. I we literally have satellites in space. Uh, uh, Satellites in space. Uh, uh, Photographing Earth. There's a website. I can't think of the. How does NASA take pictures of. Like, we literally have satellites in space taking pictures of Earth in real time from space. There is actually a website. I cannot remember the name of the website because I didn't think I've never believed that it was going to ever be important. Because it's not important. Because the Earth is in fact round. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I got like 10 minutes left. I'm gonna go buy some chips. Like, I'm into the conspiracy that the moon landing was from the time of the Cold War race, and it was all to show America landed humans on the moon, not to just show, like, just show up and get above USSR. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why they did it, right? To get a man on the moon. Like, certainly an achievement, but not like the greatest achievement ever within the space race. Like, getting into space is far more impressive than putting a man on the moon. That the Soviets were the first people into space. They were the first people to put a satellite around the Earth because it's a fucking round object. They were the first people to hit the moon with an object. So, satellite image of Earth from space. Like, I feel like I'm losing my mind here. I feel like there is Oh, is this? Yeah. John, it's both round and flat. It's a disc, enlightened centrist. Thanks, Cotton. Always taking the middle ground. Like, this is an architect. Look, if the moon landing was fake, if the moon landing was fake, the Soviets would have called it. They would have taken a look at it and they would have been like, "There's nothing up there," right? They would have absolutely called it. I'm getting slow internet connection, which bears out, actually. I don't know if I want to do this with a slow internet connection. Is this going to give me what I want? No, this isn't giving me what I want anyway. God damn. This is eyes on the earth. This has got to be it. This has got to be it. Yeah, here we go. from NASA, right? Eyes on the Earth. There you go. Oh my God, there's a big hole. Yeah, fake. My man, I gotta tell you, and here's the thing that kills me the most about this flat Earth idea, is that there's absolutely no benefit to them doing it. That's the best part. Like, right, but you know what it's tracking, right? Like, you understand what's being tracked here, right? These are the satellites that are going around. And, like, again, like, to what benefit? All right. Satellite image. Image of Earth from space. From... Like, it's just so, like, it's so obviously round. Like, that's the thing that kills me about this whole thing. 30 amazing pictures of Earth. Let's go. The capitalist class could never resist developing space tech in order to mine asteroids. I mean, it is pretty cool to think about, but my general opinion is that humanity cannot achieve meaningful space exploration without first dealing with its own social conflicts, and it certainly isn't going to be able to terraform other planets until it successfully masters the terraforming of its own planet. Right? Like, if you can't successfully control the ecosystem of your own planet, you're definitely not terraforming Mars, for example. Ugh. No, just fucking straight up NASA. Okay, great. I made these all in Photoshop, bruh. So? That's NASA. So what? Is there a problem with NASA? Oh, it's the government. It's the government. And again, I asked a question, like, if, like, your whole point up here was so just like, I can see the beach and it doesn't seem round. So what? You are tiny. You are very little. You are wee. Right? That a round surface, right? If a surface is curved to a very, very tiny creature, that creature will perceive that curve as flat because of how tiny the creature is. And so for example, right? Like if you shrunk Earth down to the size of a billiard ball, right? The mountains, the peak of the mountain to the lowest level of in the ocean would actually be shallower than what actually exists on an actual billiard ball. The Earth would actually be smoother than a billiard ball. So I guess the Earth is smooth. That it's all about your perspective and your it's all about your perspective. Right? That if you're very small, a curved object will appear to be flat. There's an episode I watch, a woman in Florida with a telescope at a curved area, and she doesn't see the curve. I don't know what to tell you, man. We've been to space. Like, we've been to space. Like, I don't give two shits about your woman with a telescope. Like, not only has America been to space, like this is the look. I need you to understand the scope and the scale of what it is you are saying. I need you to understand the scope and the scale of what you're saying. No, it hasn't been hundreds of years, Bex. It's been thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians, in order to successfully build the pyramids, had to account for the curvature of the earth. The pyramids are so large that they have to account for the curvature of the earth within their calculations, or else they couldn't have built the pyramids. So we've known. Anybody that's looked into this or done anything, they know. So it's been thousands of years, at least. The scope and scale of this conspiracy, okay? What it means, okay? What you are asking us to believe, right? Is that not only are the Americans lying, right? NASA. Not only are the Americans lying about the Earth being flat, about the Earth is actually flat, but it's round. We say it's round. Why? Please, I actually want to hear this answer, Raspberry. Why would they lie? Why are they lying about the Earth being flat? If the Earth is flat, why lie? What benefit? How does it benefit them to convince the entire global population? But how does it profit them? What profit do they derive? What possible benefit? So not only would the Americans be needing to lie, the Russians would be needing to lie. The Chinese would be needing to lie. The Latin Americans would need to be lying. The Middle Easterners would need to be lying. The Europeans would need to be lying. Literally, America and Russia were engaged in what is called the Cold War. They were antagonists to one another. There was a big moment when everybody was afraid that they were going to nuke each other, and it was going to be a big thing. But while that was all happening, everybody agreed to lie about this. Why? Because if you think about it, says Raspberry. I'm really looking forward to this, Raspberry. I got to tell you, I am. I'm really looking forward to this. Because if you think about it, we only think the Earth is round because of common sense. No. No, Raspberry. No. We do not only think that the Earth is round because of common sense. We think the Earth is round because we've measured it, because we've gone to space and taken photos of it, because we have sent satellites around it, because we have taken pictures of it. We've taken pictures of the Earth from space, and we have seen that it is round. It is not, in fact, our common sense that has convinced us that the Earth is round. It is, in fact, the evidence. The overwhelming evidence that has convinced us that the Earth is round. It's the measurements of people like Aristotle, like the people, like the Egyptians, like who built the pyramids, like Archimedes, like Isaac Newton and Einstein, like Galileo, who built an observatory and proved through his measurements that the Earth had to be round. And most importantly, I really, really, really cannot stress this enough. It is because we have gone to space and turned around and taken a picture of the Earth. And every time we've done that, it's been round. Hold on, I gotta read this whole statement. Because if you think about it, we only think the Earth is round because of common sense, but it can't end historically America. You know they invest billions in space taking money from people, right? But they could do that if the Earth was flat, right? Like if they went to space and they were like, "Oh man, picture of the Earth. Hey everybody, the Earth is actually flat." If the Earth is flat, how come I've never seen the bottom of it? How come I've never seen the underneath part of the Earth? How come, you know what, man? I want to bring up a picture of the flat Earth. Let's go. Flat Earth, yeah, it's the Antarctica wall, the ice wall. I love this idea. The flat Earth ice wall, I think is real. This is real. Like this is the flat Earth. This was a real, true flat Earth, like brainwave. That they were like, no, wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. Antarctica is an ice wall. I respect it. I gotta tell you, I respect it. Right? Like, there is just no fucking way. And you know how I know? You know how I know that this is total bullshit? Because lots of different nations, at lots of different times in history, have gone to space. And every single time they've gone to space, they've said, yeah, Earth's round. Earth's round like a motherfucker. And if the Earth is flat, what does the underneath part look like? Is there an entire different landmass on the other side? Is there an entire other civilization? An entire other global community that exists on the undercarriage? Maybe that's what the secret's all about. That the capitalists are enslaving a whole group of people and they don't even want us to know about it. And that's who the aliens are. That when they send the squid pod thing, that they're trying to communicate with us, but they're fighting against the capitalists, and so that's what the UFOs are. That the UFOs they're on the other side of the Earth, the other side of the flat Earth, and they're trying to communicate with us, but they don't speak our language, and they develop differently than us, and so they're sending UFOs over here, and that's what's going on. Oh, we've cracked the code, people. We've cracked the code. No, the Earth is 2D. If you try to look at the underside, you just look straight through it. Right. Yeah, holy shit, you've never thought about the upside down people, right? There's upside down. There is the upside down. Who lives in the upside down? In the show Stranger Things, when they went to the upside down, were they just going to the other side of the flat Earth planet? Huh? What's under there? What's their agenda? We got to talk about what's the agenda of the upside down people. What do they want? Dude, you could, I feel like that's what an amazing movie concept that is. The name of the movie is Flat Earth. And the movie is all about how the system of propaganda is convincing people that they live on a flat earth, but then they find out that it's actually round. Yes. And you have like an Alex Jones type person, and the entire reason they're doing it is to justify a military industrial complex against foreign nations that they're convincing their own population actually live on the underside of the flat earth. Yes. Yes. That's a great movie idea. That's a great movie idea. Flat earth. God damn, I gotta start writing some of these scripts, man. I tell you what. Imagine we proved the flat earth and you guys look stupid. Yeah, right. We're the stupid looking ones, for sure. Look, how would you go... Raspberry. Hey, Raspberry. How would you go about proving that the earth is flat? What would be like the definitive evidence? Like, what would be the thing that would actually make you go like, oh yeah, like that's a great idea? Oh yeah, the blue marble photo. I feel like you said that earlier. Yeah, let's bring that one up. Blue marble earth photo. There's a guy playing some music right outside. I don't think this is the photo, but the one from the moon. Yeah, yeah. I feel like there's just so many like blue marble earth from the moon photo. Yeah, that's the one. It's that one or it's this one. Yeah, this is like the classic one. This is pretty convincing, I gotta tell you. Yeah. And like, if the Earth was flat, shouldn't there be other celestial bodies that are flat? Like, I just feel like the flat Earth theory has a lot of problems. Just a lot of problems with it. Earth is flat because we all can't attest it. And when people test it, like women, I said, don't. And Raspberry Man, how you doing over there? You doing okay? That's round, not a ball. Right, but you see the shadow, right? Where's that shadow coming from, do you think? Right? Like they're on the moon, right? And the sun is shining on the ball that is the earth, right? And the sun's rays are not reaching part of the round ball earth, right? What shadow? That's a poor camera? My man. No, dude. Oh. Oh, man. Okay. Well, that was fun. Do I have... Nah. Like, I could probably just use my fist, right? I could probably just, but then I have to get up and like turn lights off and shit. I don't care. Oh yeah, I mean like, no, I've met flat earthers in real life. They believe it. Like, I don't think it's a troll. I will say this though about the whole flat Earth thing. One thing I've definitely come to, one of the things I've definitely come to understand about flat earthers and about flat eartherism generally. If somebody tells you, like, I have fallen into a position in the past where I have said, "Oh, flat Earth. Okay, well, that doesn't mean that they're a bad person. I can still like hang out with or get to know a person who's a flat earther, right?" You genuinely cannot. And here is why. Because if you believe that the earth is flat, there is nothing you cannot believe. If you are incapable of the base skepticism that says, hold on a minute, the earth is flat, that sounds dumb, right? Then you can be conned into believing anything. That there is actually no bottom to your self-deception. That fundamentally means that you can be a very dangerous person, and it fundamentally means that you are unnegotiable. You cannot actually negotiate with a person like this. Right? I am a person who believes what I see. We've taken pictures of the Earth from space. That if you take a 10-foot tall pillar and you put it 50 miles apart on the north-south axis, the shadow that is cast from the pillars will be of a different length because the earth is curved and isn't flat. If the earth was flat, then the shadows would be of equal length, no matter where you put it. But because the earth is round, if you put those pillars in different places, the shadow cast will be of different length. And that's literally all the evidence that you need. That's a test that you can run right now. That you can take another flat earth friend. You can get a 10-foot pole, 20-foot pole, 30-foot pole, right? You can get on your phones. You can send one person 10 hours north and you can go 10 hours south, right? Set the pole so it stands straight up. Measure the length of the shadow. No. No. I'm not going to look up the flat earth model. A person who believes this and who cannot be convinced of it is a person that you can't negotiate with. And if a person it cannot be negotiated with, it is only a matter of time until they turn this on you. That's why you can't get into a relationship with flat earthers. Because if they believe this and they stand hard on this and they die on this hill, then they're 100% going to pick a hill to die on when it comes to their relationship with you. And they're not going to see reason, and they're not going to be negotiated, and it's going to be an argument, and it's going to be a problem, and it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be annoying. So just save yourself the time. Right? If you're on the first date and the person says, oh, the earth is flat. Oh, I think the earth is flat. You can say, oh, okay, cool. Well, it's been nice meeting you, and you can get up and leave. Spare yourself the effort and spare yourself the time. Because if they believe that, then there's nothing they won't believe. And so if they just decide that you have wronged them, then that's what has happened. And they won't be convinced of it otherwise. And how do I know they won't be convinced of it otherwise? Because they can't be convinced that the Earth is round when you show them a photograph of the Earth from space. So they're certainly not going to be convinced that you didn't wrong them when they've decided that you did. Do you believe that global warming is more correlated with flat Earth? No, I don't think the Earth is flat. I think the Earth is round. But if your question is actually, do I think that global warming there's more evidence for it? Yeah, because there's evidence for it. Like, do you have any idea how easy it would be to prove that the Earth is flat? Like, do you have any idea how staggeringly simple it would be? You could walk to the edge of the Earth with a camera and take a picture of the end of the Earth. That's how easy it would be. You could fly a drone off the edge of the Earth and fly the drone underneath the Earth and fly the drone through the underside of the Earth. It would be absurdly easy to prove. It would be childishly easy to prove. It is very easy to prove the Earth is flat. Okay, cool. You know what? I was going to say goodnight, but let's do it. What's your proof? Where should I go? Raspberry? What should I type into Google? Prove to me the Earth is flat. I literally am doing this for my own amusement at this point, and also to kind of illustrate a point that you shouldn't really hang out with flat earthers. People refuting scientific theory, creationists should be denied the benefits of modern science. Yeah. I mean, I was like briefly a creationist. I wouldn't really describe it as like hardcore creationism because I was taught I went to Jesus school, and my Jesus school was still like evolution is real. They had been like, they were one of these people that was like, yeah, evolution is real, but that was the toolkit by which God created, right? And so it was like a blending of creationist theory, blending creationism with evolutionary theory, right? And like I actually tend to think that the actual creationists that are actually in the scientific community are the ones that want to dig the hardest and dig the deepest. And they often come up with some kind of cool stuff, right? I don't buy into their whole thesis, right? Because their thesis is kind of like, there's a will behind creation that I don't see. I don't think is accurate. I think that creation just occurred. Right? Like it didn't get created with a will. It got created just because it had to get created, and it did get created. Right? That creation is a force. And it's not that God sat back and thought to himself, I think I'll make a human. Nope. That we're just a byproduct of creation. We're not the purpose of it. Go to Florida, get your telescope, get the work done. So, okay, bud, I'm in Florida, right? Where should I stand in Florida? Where should I be in Florida in order to prove the Earth is flat? Is this going to be a like lookout over the ocean kind of thing? Is that what this is? So I'm in Florida. Standing in Florida. Gusano territory. Partying with Bolsonaro in Miami. Dun 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 chicka 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 dun dun dun. Fidel Castro was the worst because he took my family's slave farm away from me. We should go to Cuba and enslave them again. Batista was the best. Okay, so I'm in Florida, right? Where am I pointing my telescope? Where's my telescope being pointed? Like that was not improv salsa music. That was a direct lift from Tropico. So please do not credit me with that song, because that was 100% Tropico. A good beach for observing Earth's curvature in Florida is Cocoa Beach. Cocoa Beach, Florida. Great. Oh yeah, like right on the edge of it. Okay, cool. So what you're saying is that we should take a telescope, we should stand on the edge of the beach, and we should shine that telescope out into the ocean, right? And if we do that, right, we'll watch a boat just keep on going. And actually, right? Actually, if the telescope was powerful enough, right? If you had a powerful enough telescope, right? You should be able to see Morocco. Right? Right? So the boat will go, right? From Florida to Morocco. Right? Conton's leaving a link in the Discord. Hold on. Where's this? Waddles. Is this what you wanted to say? Conton? Is this unrelated? Because I actually do have a response. Hold on. We'll get into that, Conton. I do want to talk about that. Hey, Raspberry. I'm going to show you guys something. I love this. Okay. Let me get a better cup than that. I'll be right back, okay? 1 second. Let's see. I have a little ball. Over here. Yes, perfect. So, your claim, Raspberry. I'll talk about that Buddha image in a second if you like. It's my spiritual study, the chakras. So, the claim is that I am supposed to stand on Florida, look across a giant body of water, and I'll see a boat that'll go all the way to Morocco. And hey, maybe I'll even see the shore of Morocco. Right? That's a glass of water. Right? You notice how the glass of water is flat? You see how the water is flat at the very top? Right? This would be better without the... Okay? Flat right on top. See how that's a sphere? Right? That's a round object, right? Spherical object, correct? Water flat. Water flat. Water fills up any vessel it is in and then appears as flat. No. Did you know that there's land under the water? Cotton gave us a really great article here. It's worth talking about. Unbelievable. Stephanie Séjourne, France's new Minister of Foreign Affairs, essentially said that France would not support the ICJ's decision if it rules against Israel because accusing them of genocide is crossing a moral threshold and is exploiting the notion of genocide for political purposes. Here's the exact quote translated. As for the International Court of Justice, we firmly tell the Israelis that the international law applies to everyone. The systemic strikes in Gaza must stop, but words have meaning, and accusing the Jewish state of genocide is crossing a moral threshold. We cannot exploit the notion of genocide for political purposes. That is our consistent position. So first of all, it's an egregious lie that it would be their consistent position that we cannot exploit the notion of genocide for political purposes. Because less than a year ago, the French Parliament, including Macron's party, voted to recognize as genocide the Holodomor in Ukraine. And the year before, they also voted, including Macron's party, to recognize the so-called Uyghur genocide. Both clearly done for political purposes. On the Uyghurs, only some Western countries led by the U.S. have ever called it a genocide, and a UN Human Rights Office investigation on the ground did not retain this designation. So when it's directed at geopolitical foes of the West, France happily exploits the notion of genocide for political purposes. And in this case, this isn't even about this, since we're speaking about an official ruling by the International Court of Justice, of which France is a founding member. So if the ICJ ruled in the sense that Israel was indeed committing genocide, by definition, it wouldn't be an exploitation of the notion of genocide for political purposes, but a ruling based on international law. So as I've said since the very beginning, this demonstrates once again that the war in Gaza is essentially the war of the rules-based order, with all its double standards, versus international law. And sadly, now France has made it clear that faced with the choice, they opt to side with the rules-based order against international law. Just brutal. Just absolutely brutal. Greetings from Havana. Oh, Cuban. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Hope you're doing well, bud. Man, I should go to Cuba again soon. That was a beautiful place. I'd love to go there without my dad. Just me. Welcome to Cuba. Bring money. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Can you please ask the Cuban if he's starving? Bye, Raspberry. Fucking racist piece of shit. Flat earthing bitch. What'd I tell you, man? You can't trust flat earthers. You just can't. If they believe the earth is flat, they'll believe anything. They'll believe the most despicable, disgraceful shit. Ugh. Oh, on Twitch we have somebody from Israel. Let's just cut to the chase. Zionism, yes or no? What do you think, Eric the Goose? Zionism, yes or no? Oh man, we're going late. We're going real late. Depends what your definition of Zionism. Bye-bye. I have absolutely no problem banning you, bud. Zionists are Nazis. I don't create a distinction because there is none to be created. So, Zionism apologencia gets you banned. Goodbye. Go fuck yourself. These fucking Nazis, man. So, if France is not going to uphold the decision of the ICJ, but what's interesting about this quote, right? What is actually interesting in this quote is that it's not saying that the ICJ is not going to rule in favor of Israel. Like, I don't actually give a shit if France says, oh, fuck the ICJ. Right? That's not a big... I don't have a problem with that. You know? Like, oh, you mean the electoral political system in France is has no credibility? Great. Here's a perfect example of that. Here's a perfect example of how France's electoral system, just like all capitalist electoral systems, no longer have any credibility. Right? Where my concern lay in regards to this, is that the ICJ will not rule against Israel. That's my concern. Because if the International Court of Justice itself rules in favor of Israel and rules against the Palestinians, or against the South Africans, I guess technically, then that means that the International Court of Justice itself has no credibility. Yep. I think that these organizations are important, not because they have the capability to be actionable. Like, the International Court of Justice does not have an army, so they can't enforce their ruling, right? They can't enforce anything. And that's the same of the UN. They don't have an army, so they can't really enforce anything. But they do stand as organizations that are attempting to sort out what is true and what is false, and attempting to allow nations to have diplomacy and conversations with one another in an open forum. And I think that that is very important. And I think it's very important that there are organizations that nations can go to in order to have these very serious conversations about war and genocide. But if these organizations refuse to actually uphold their mandate, then they lose credibility, and they lose the ability, they lose the capacity to be trusted in that regard. And to me, if the International Court of Justice discredits itself for the benefit of the West, that is a crossing of a threshold. That what comes after such an event is conflict. Because if the Western systems and the Western international bodies begin to kowtow to the political powers of the day instead of adhering to principles that exist within their mandate, then conflict is on the horizon. And we are on the precipice of major conflict. We are on the precipice of major conflict. And if the ICJ says this is not a genocide, then there is no such thing as genocide, and the United States will do anything it wants, anywhere it wants, to anyone it wants, with the understanding that there will be no consequences. Eggs D writes, I literally got a fucking Fraser Institute. Oh, wow, the Fraser Institute's interrupting us. Fantastic. That's the best news I think I've received in a long time, man. That means that I'm a threat. That means that they're scared of me. Or at the very least, that means the algorithm is like, politics and politics. Right? Best news I've heard all day. Maybe all year, in fact. Fuck the Fraser Institute. Interrupting the stream with, under socialism, the Poles suffered. Yeah, I'm sure the Nazis suffered under socialism, I'm sure. Yeah, the Nazis don't exist, I guess. Yeah, this is the new strategy, right? That the Nazis never existed. Right? Discuss everything that occurs without the Nazis' involvement. There's no such thing as a Nazi. And the only reason you're supposed to talk about the Nazis is to say that communism and Nazism is the same thing. That's the only time that you're supposed to have that discussion. Outside of that, all of the actions of every socialist project happened in a total vacuum. There is no such thing as there's no such thing as a Nazi, right? That the Soviets were just being belligerent. They were cruel. Look at the harsh actions that they took. Yeah, because they had Nazis breathing down their neck. It's like it would be like watching like a slasher film, and just saying like, "Wow, that young lady's acting very hysterically. What is she panicking about?" And just like pretending like the murderer wasn't in the film. Just that's exactly what it's like talking to these people. That they're watching like a Jason film where Jason is steadily marching towards people and murdering them with machetes, and people are running away from them, and just acting like the people who are running away from Jason Voorhees. Well, they're what a bunch of hysterical. Who would trust anything that these people think? Oh, goodness. And just ignoring Jason. Dude, I need to actually make that movie. Like, if somebody gave me like $1 million and said, make whatever movie you want, it would be exactly that. It would be this movie that I've talked about a lot on the stream, which is have just like an everyday normal American town where like people are living their normal life, but have a guy who's like covered from head to toe in blood, holding like a big machete or a knife or a weapon or something with like a crazed look on his face, going around openly stabbing people to death, and have literally everybody ignore him. And then very steadily, there's just one young lady who starts to go like, wait a minute, there's a guy murdering people, look at him. And the whole film is about her dealing with people who are just in total denial about it. And then she's pointing, and there it is. And then you find out that the leadership of the town, it's their son or something, like, so that it's all connected into this like web of kind of things. And then eventually the town rises up and figures it all out, right? That eventually they put 2 and 2 together. So put a little happy ending on it. Or if you wanted to go the even creepier route, just have her like call a meeting, show all of the evidence of the guy with the knife, and then have the guy with the knife come in front of literally everybody, murder the young lady in front of everybody, and then just walk out and have everybody go like, well, what was that all about? Wow, just very strange, and leave. And that's the movie. Yeah, that's the way I would end it. Yeah, fuck this happy ending bullshit. Things are coming to a head in the economies of the West. For sure they are. Well, the game is up. Right? The game is up. Like, the capitalists are no longer getting a free ride from the global south. That the global south is rising up against it. They're casting off the old methods and the old colonial power structures. And they're not really interested in buying their stupid dollars anymore. Moreover, the global south is beginning to trade with each other. China is trading with Venezuela, which is trading with South Africa, right? Like that, which is trading with Russia, which is trading with India, which is trading with Saudi Arabia, right? So America is no longer allowed in the conversation. It's no longer part of that conversation. It's being pushed out of the conversation. And situations like this with the ICJ are just making that more. It's just incentivizing people more to get away from America as fast as possible. Like, the game is ending for American capitalists. And as the game ends for American capitalists, They're having to deal with their own domestic populations, and they're not going to. They're just not going to. Right? Like, chaos is coming. It's coming in big, serious ways. Like, the systemic abandonment is going to be dramatic and rapid. And I've been saying this all along. What's going to happen is very dim-witted people are going to make a lot of bad decisions very quickly. Right? So guys like Donald Trump or Pierre Poilievre are going to make a bunch of decisions, a bunch of very bad decisions very quickly. And we're just going to deal with it. Like, that's what's coming. And as long as I'm able, I'll be streaming about it. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.